Hello everyone, we're live. Nice to meet you all. Good morning. So we have a good number of audience now. Hello everyone. Hello Kunal. Hello Mohit. Hello Shruti. 𝗬𝗁𝘀𝗍𝗃. Good morning. Good morning. If you guys can hear me, could you just type one in the chat box to know that okay audio sab sahi aa raha hai. Perfect. Sure. All right. Thank you guys. Perfect. Okay, so we'll just wait for a couple of more people to join from start karte hain. Okay. I would like to know where everyone's from. If you could just type that in the chat box. हम लोग एक बार एक ऑडियंस का पता चल जाएगा where they are from. Pan India. I'll start. I'm from Ahmedabad. ईशा आप currently कहाँ पे हो?
I am in Mumbai.
Yeah, Mumbai. Okay, perfect. Cool. बाकी सब लोग we are from Kutch. Okay. He's also from Ahmedabad. Cool. Great. So Isha, how is Mumbai treating you? Traffic or sub?
Traffic is though the same every day, but yes, it's getting cooler, which is great. It was
Okay.
extremely hot the last few days.
Oh, okay. All right. यहाँ पे अहमदाबाद में तो प्रॉब्लम इसके अभी इतना ठंडा हो नहीं रहा है as such जितना we are expecting in November का month. हाँ तो it's taking a lot of time. So रात को भी we have ACs blazing out and everything is there.
Yeah, it's the same. God knows winter कब आएगा.
Definitely.
Winter.
Great.
Such interesting places.
Anji, definitely. And as I mentioned, we'll also have people joining in from abroad as well. So we'll have Nigerian people as well. We'll have people from the US as well. So there will be a couple of people joining.
I can see Shruti.
Hey, Shruti.
Hi.
How are you doing? Where are you from, Shruti?
Hi, I'm from Nagpur.
You're from Nagpur. Nice to meet you. कैसा चल रहा है अभी सब?
It's good going.
It's good. Cool.
Yeah.
What are you pursuing right now, or what are you working on?
I am a product designer looking out for opportunities right now and
Oh,
working
okay.
for ADI with
Okay.
Isha.
Oh, okay. Perfect. Good. Right. Thank you.
Sorry, but I think I am unable to type in chat. It says chat is only available during meeting.
I started the meeting, so it should be able to, like, people are able to type. Could you just try rejoining once again? So you'll be able to do it. Yeah, thank you. Cool, so wait for 2-3 more minutes and then we'll start again. Guys, I would encourage you to just turn on your cameras ताकि हम एटलीस्ट एक दूसरे को देख पाएं and we can have a conversation later on. फिर बीच में we will be engaging. So it will also be good for Isha and I just to see some familiar faces and then just start it off because the dead screens देखने में isn't fun even while presenting. So be engaging.
Yes, please. Thank you.
No
We'll also
worries.
be doing a lot of interaction, so it will
Yes,
be nice.
for sure.
We can see people,
Hmm.
and it's just nice and warm.
Yeah. If you're
I can
any
see
number
one
of people,
happy face.
yeah, any number of people who can just turn it on, that'd be good, great. I mean, like, because we had one person who was there in the traffic and he turned it on. So it was like, he was engaging with while riding on the scooter. So it was fun then. So we have a lot of fun interactions here and we get to learn a lot. So chill right there.
Yes, we don't have to look the best. It's Saturday morning. It doesn't
Yeah,
matter.
true.
Honestly, it's supposed to be a break day.
Fair enough.
Hi, 𝗬𝘀𝗹'𝘀. Hi, Raj. I'm just seeing people with cameras
Yeah.
on.
As you can
Hi,
quickly
ma'am.
introduce yourselves as well. So, आप आवाज तो on कर ही सकते हो अभी के लिए. Not a problem. Then we'll have interactions in the middle.
My uncle is here. He's also a friend, graphic designer
okay.
from Mumbai.
Okay. Hello, Monk. Nice to meet you. Second, let's get the screen. Yeah. Perfect. All right. So I guess we'll start now. And then once people come, people join in, let's continue from there. Cool. So yeah, welcome everyone once again who have just recently joined. We started out like a couple of minutes ago. So I'll start off by giving like a brief of what Sandskriti is doing, because many people might be new to this community. And I want to just tell you about what we have done throughout and what we are trying to do here. Okay. So Sandskriti ke saath, when we started out about 2 years ago, we started off with an aim to make India as a design hub, because it is still known as a tech hub, right? So हम लोग को connect करना था people को, and designers usually engage on the online platforms, which is good. They try to help each other, but we wanted to do something different as well. जिसके लिए we started organizing events. We started hosting meetups, and now that we're doing workshops, so we were able to get the privilege of meeting mentors like Isha and everyone else who was there to support us within this. So this is what we are continuing to do up until we will have our Designathon, which is going to be one of the biggest, which is going to be the world's biggest Designathon. So it will be a design competition being hosted across the cities of India. It's going to be offline. I'll show you how you can register with us for that. I'll just share my screen. Second. Yeah, hope you guys can see the screen. So this is our Designathon, which is going to take place in the month of January. To be specific, on the 25th of January, and this is where it is going to take place in the 12 cities. And we'll have designers from all across the fields, which will include the college students, which will include the working professionals who are trying to level up in this industry. So unke liye that this is going to be a very good exposure, which is going to be there. And there will be mentors like me, Isha, and everyone else who is going to be there to support you guys. तो ऐसा नहीं है कि we just leave you for the Designathon. We'll be constantly supporting you, and this workshops will be a medium for that. तो आपके पास workshops के लिए you'll be able to prepare for everything else is going to happen. I'll be displaying this QR as well at the end, and you'll also get a link to register with us. So this is one thing. And then something exciting is there from our end, which is going to be the passport. So this passport is something which you also showed Isha, and she was also pretty excited about this for coming up with this. And this passport is actually going to be your gateway to all the communities which are going to be formed within Sanskriti and in general. So I'll just give you a brief about the passport. So this is the designer's passport which we have. So you will have your own identity as a designer now, and you'll be associated with a tribe. For example, if I have the space, so I have the space tribe with me, and this is the volunteer tribe. So we have other tribes as well, and mentors are going to be associated within those tribes. For example, Isha is also associated with a tribe, and then so forth and so on. And this is actually going to be your channel of getting onboarded with us. You'll get the stamps for all the mentors. And these are postal stamps and the normal stamps which you get. And you can have a memorabilia sort of a thing. And since you're also coming up with like an application for Sanskriti, so this will be established as a global platform. So up to आप कोई भी चीज के लिए you can get onboarded with us, and then you can pan throughout. So yeah, this was like a quick glimpse of what Sanskriti is doing. And we are also coming up with a lot of things, so just stay tuned. We're going to have a workshop next week as well. But I guess we'll just take forward with Isha now. So Isha, hi, nice to meet you once again. Hope you're doing well.
Thank you. Thank you, Nandi.
Yeah, so we met Isha at the Design Yatra, which was, I think, a couple of months ago. And we had a nice chat, and she was very excited about this, of doing a workshop online. And she also mentioned that, she keeps on doing these workshops just to engage with people, just to tell them, okay, something is lacking within the industry, which is supposed to be sorted out. She also sees a gap within the industry, which we are also doing. So this is something which we find on the same wavelength, and this is something which we want to actually go forward. So Isha, quick introduction for you. I mean, you're from NID, you're from UID, you are a mentor there. And but I would like you to kind of go forward with your introduction, because I want the mentors to kind of introduce themselves, right? So if you can do that and then carry forward with the workshop, that would be great.
Yeah, sure. First of all, thank you so much, guys, for waking up on a Saturday morning and being here. It's a lot of effort. I get that. We've all been there. So thank you. Also, thank you, the entire team of Sandskriti. They've been extremely nice and extremely encouraging about, wanting to do something and make a change. So uh, kudos to that. And I look forward to everything that's going to happen. Uh, you know, and about me, uh, it's a very funny story, but I was watching a movie called 𝗬𝗪𝗪𝘀, very,
Yeah.
classic movie. And that's when I said, that's the office I want to work in. Obviously, that was hypothetical, and that's where my whole, idea of getting into something creative started. And then a couple of people introduced me to NIB, which then became a conversation in my house where, let's look at design universities and so on and so forth. And I visited a couple of them just to see which campus I like. I eventually got into MIT, and that's where my journey began. So MIT India, Pune, and that's I started as a communication designer and soon realized that I don't want to just be a communication designer. And that's where my love for brands, branding, storytelling came in. And yeah, that's where it started. So I went to pursue my master's, and I fell in love with design systems in general around the world, and combining that and branding and design. Since then, I've been a part of different projects where I've worked as a strategist and a design manager. And then I've also been teaching since 2019, which happened by chance, and now it's become a full-time job. So I currently work
Great.
with about 5 universities across the country as a visiting and adjunct. So UID is one of them. Flame Pune is another. Active is which is where I spend most of my career. And MIT alma mater, Somaya in Bombay. So yeah, that's what I'm doing currently. And like you said, trying to bridge the gap between the academia and the industry, which is constantly growing. So that's what I'm going to talk about today as well. So
Great. Thank you for that lovely introduction.
do you want
Yeah.
me to start? Should we?
Yeah, I think we can start. We can start. We have a sizable number of audience.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
Give me a
Okay.
sec.
Perfect. Yeah, sure.
Right. Okay. So, hi guys. What we are going to talk about, you can see my screen, right?
Yeah. Could you make this full screen if possible? We're able to see
It
the
is.
screen though.
It is full screen.
Yeah, we're able to see the screen though. Not a problem there. Yeah. Just press F11. I think that will make it work.
It's showing me full screen. Just 1 second, I'll share it again.
Yeah, not a problem. Not a problem. You share it again.
Can you see it now?
Yeah, it's perfect now. Great.
Yeah. So we're talking about discovering the designer within you. And what I want to start with, why do we even go to design schools? What really got everyone into design? And guys, feel free to like keep typing in. And Nabu can keep telling me if there's a message because I can't see that part of the screen.
Yeah, for
But
sure.
we can keep having an engaging session. So the idea is to understand what happens in classrooms and why we should also be focusing on things outside classroom. That's pretty much the whole conversation and what we can do to keep ourselves active and engaged and, not survive our future, but sort of thrive in the future. That's something that I work with as a line as well. So yeah, to start with, I'm going to take you through. Like I said, thank you for being here today. All I'm going to do in the next 3 hours is give you some energy and tell you that, you're doing okay and there's a lot more that you can do. And we won't need those GIFs and memes anymore. So that's pretty much what my theme is over here. Right. I already told you what I do and a little bit about me. I think it's just important to know who's talking to you and who is telling you in any workshop, because that's a perspective at the end of the day, and you should kind of take it in your own way with a pinch of salt. So, all the things that you see on the left is all the things that I've been doing. Design education, branding, worked on a couple of government brands, design management, worked as a design manager in institutions as well as different corporations, and then been doing workshops for the longest time. So moving on, what I have learned throughout my journey is these 4 key things. And I've realized that every time I think about what I've learned, it's got nothing to do with design, to be honest, right? And that's where this whole conversation of beyond the classroom even started. So, at the end of 3 months, I had this habit of checking in where I am, right? Because the world is moving so fast. So every time I look back and write the key 3 words at the end of 3 months, I always find that they have nothing to do with design. They have nothing to do with my job, and they have absolutely nothing to do with, the environment I work in. It's just literally me and myself. And I think that goes for everybody as well. So consistency and showing up, I think that's absolutely important. And that's my main key takeaway. We as designers tend to get bored really quickly. I'm guilty of that as well. And you always want to try to move to something new and keep moving and moving. But even if you're moving in the same space, I think showing up consistently in that space really helps. So moving on, I'd love to know why all of you are here. Like I said, it is a lot of effort to, get online now after COVID. So I'd love to know why everyone's here and what you sort of expect out of this workshop. Is it
Yes,
possible to?
quickly. Yeah, definitely. Let's quickly turn on the cameras or raise your hand. That'll also be fine. क्या हो गया? अभी भी लोग सो रहे हैं. Isha will have to wake them up, I think.
Okay, then let's
Yeah,
move
big
on.
dog.
I'm going to put some
Yeah.
exercises, which is going
Yeah,
to be, moving on for that.
For sure,
Okay.
for sure.
Yeah, so today's agenda has these 3 things. One is the big gap between academia and industry. The second one is road mapping, where I'm going to make you do some work. So you are going to wake up. And the third one is just these little reminders that I think we often forget. So it's good to just sort of remind yourself how to keep up with everything that's constantly changing. Yeah, it's important to know where you stand. So what has changed in the last decade is absolutely important. These are some of the trends that I have noticed. And so moving from a product and service centric thinking to more product human relationships, every product brand you see or every brand that you see, service brand, is talking more about how it is fitting into your life. So we're not just talking about need anymore. We're talking about desires. We're talking about want. And that's a major shift that's happened. The second one, I think, is from obvious. This is a very obvious one, which is print and web too. We have extremely small screen focused design. So every time I go into a class and we work on a branding or a digital project, we don't really work on just websites anymore. We extend it to how it'll look on a watch, how it'll look on obviously our phones, how it's going to look on various devices which are now integrating into our lives. So small screen focus is extremely important. And moving on from function and aesthetics, we're focusing so much on experience and value. Uh, every time we buy a product or we even look at an ad, we're always looking at what do I get out of it? Is it really benefiting? Whether it has some value addition in my life? So we're constantly looking and asking those questions to ourselves, which consumers at some point did not. And we obviously, the creative community, being the creators and the users as well, we have an advantage of playing the dual role, right? So every time we're creating something, we're also being consumers. So something that I say in my classes all the time is that we should practice playing the split personality. And as creepy as that sounds, I think it's a very, very fun exercise where you can always do some work and then sort of sleep over it, or maybe go get a break, do something you love, come back, and then look at it from a user perspective, right? And then criticize and break and deconstruct your own work as much as you can, just like a lawyer does, right? So you break your own case down so that you don't have to answer questions that are going to come in from a client or from a large group or just consumers backfiring, when the product is launched or is out there. So I think that's very important. Design has gone from tangible to intangible. And this is something that I genuinely like because I started out with design being tangible. Whereas I obviously, as a communication designer in universities, you're always learning typography and illustration and, you know, all these skills. And then when you actually get out of college or your education and you move into a more industry role, whether you're a freelancer, whether you're working with someone, or whether you're working in a company or a corporate studio, XYZ, right? Anything, we always start using design as thinking. So I know you know all of this, but these trends we know, we don't really identify them, which is why I'm bringing them up and then building the conversation on it. We're always working with clients, and as creative people, we get extremely frustrated when we're asked this question. My business is doing well. So my design, why should I spend more money? And that can be the most frustrating question to every creative person, right? Whether you're a designer of any kind, right?
Yeah.
I think it's
Yeah.
important for us to understand how to sell design as an asset cost rather than a liability cost and start showing value. And that's what I mean by intangible. We always talk about design as value add in the way we perceive things or use things, usability and aesthetics and functionality. We don't really connect it to business. So I think it's become extremely important in the last few years, especially after COVID, that we connect it to how it's going to benefit a company, a brand, a business, or a service, and what is it that they're going to gain out of it. It could just be simply just growing their brand valuation, or it could just be simply impacting engagement, or driving more consumer viewership, right? It could be anything, but it's very, very important to now start not just being creators, but also showing value in terms of the investments that people are going to make.
Yeah.
I think the next thing is designing as a part of brand marketing, right? It was always a marketing function, which frustrated me a lot because people always put me into, oh, so you're going to go into the marketing team, And I was always like, no, design and branding are completely different because marketing is a function after branding, right?
Right.
And if you work with a non-design boss, trust me, I'm sure you've had that experience. It's going to be a hard battle to fight. But
Right.
more and more companies are now looking at design as a core fundamental. It's trickled into more thought process. It's trickled more into a function as an extension of the business, right? We also talk about this, the definition of design as problem solving. But it's quite funny that we don't look at it that way when we really implement it. In the recent years, it has become that we start looking at design as a process rather than just as aesthetics, right? And last two trends, I think sustainability being such a common conversation, right? Every project you take up, people are going to say sustainable is a keyword, but isn't that an obvious now?
Yeah.
Like it can't be a keyword, right? So moving from sustainability as a business concern, we're moving more towards a responsibility of a designer. And everything you sort of ideate, conceptualize, or even execute, we think about sustainability as a responsibility of the designer.
Yeah.
And I think the last one is design is not just delivery anymore, right? You don't just take a brief and, design and give it back. And if you do that, I think you kind of need to expand the kind of work you do. We need to start not being a delivery agent to a business. And most companies have started doing that, especially the bigger ones. And now it's sort of trickling into SMEs and MSMEs as well, where design becomes a fundamental across processes. So whether it's operations, whether it's supply chain, whether it's just marketing, whether it's just thinking about business strategies or expansion, I think design and design thinking has become quite a conversation in the industry, right? So design is definitely growing, and that's some trends that we've seen in the last decade. My question to you is design education, right? And everyone can feel free to have an opinion, but because I've been experiencing a lot of design universities, whether it's in the country or abroad, my realization is that design is growing, but not at the pace at which the world is growing, right? So the education is playing catch up because obviously we're constantly evolving our curriculum, and it's a 4 year or 3 year or 5 year degree course, depending on where you're studying. So we're going to continuously play catch up. And by the time we play catch up, like in every subject, I think it's time to step out of our just education world and sort of start upskilling ourselves as well, which is where I'm going to spend a little more time in the next few slides. Right? So what does a typical design school teach you? We'll start with obviously the foundations, where we're taught how to unlearn a lot of learning, right? Which our schools have taught us. So we start becoming independent thinkers. We then proceed into learning a lot of softwares because they're a little more complicated than a PowerPoint or a Word document or an Excel that we usually learn in school. So we spend a lot of time learning softwares, starting from hand and then move into like hand skills and digital skills. Major part of every design education, every university is the design process and design principles, and so on and so forth. And obviously then learning from how design from our history, whether it's India or globally, now has moved into our everyday life, right? Question is, where is the world and what does the industry expect? So these are some points that I've collected and sort of, polished from different employers, whether they're studios, corporates, or just friends working independently and sort of hiring interns. So I see a lot of non-design, like non-core hardcore skills. And it's very interesting that we are talking about these skills in design universities. We are constantly touching upon these, but we don't really focus on the fundamentals of these, right? So the point I'm trying to make here is that there is a gap, right? So when I'm going to talk about, let's say, a holistic thinking skill, what I mean is we don't think specific to just that product anymore. We think with respect to culture. We think in respect to the locality we're talking to or marketing to, the country, so on and so forth. So my point is we don't think in a single track anymore, right? So all the skills that you see on the screen, I'll talk about how that gap is sort of growing and what you can do about it. So stepping outside what you learn in class, the big gap, the first one I would talk about is interdisciplinary skills. So the one on the left is how we pursue design in universities. The one on the right is how industry is pursuing it. So if you have the right skill set, the right mindset, and the right tool set, which is transferable to any discipline, irrespective of which university or which discipline you come from, you'd be doing great, right? The reason is if you know the process, the design process really well, if you can adapt it to the company's design process very quickly, and that can only happen when you're agile and when you understand why a design process is working the way it is, I think it's very easy to then transfer your skills from one studio to another company, to even when you're working individually on projects, right? Skill sets. I think if you're an illustrator, you need to know illustrations in every media in today's world. It can't be just one. Of course, you can specialize in one, but I think it's important to be transferring your skills from a hands-on to a digital and even just 3D and animation. So I think it's not moving vertically anymore, but within verticals, we're moving in horizontals now. And when I say tool sets, I mean your softwares, which are
Yeah.
constantly changing, right? So when I
Hmm.
studied, we learned Dreamweaver. Um,
Yeah.
and then, when I graduated, there was no Dreamweaver. And now we just make websites on like Wix and like Figma, right? And
Hmm.
Framer. So my point is, just in a decade, things have changed so much that from understanding codes, you don't even need to do anything, just move things around and you can manage to at least come up with a decent design, right? And
Right.
then sort of play your magic. So I think we need to start thinking outside disciplines. The second thing is the real world complexities. Something that I often faced in college, and I see a lot of students sort of struggling with this as well, is we think in a process, and when we think, we have blinders on, right? Because we're
Hmm.
always making our own briefs or, sort of working around briefs given to us, which are hypothetical at most times. Um, and then within that, we're working the most ideal situation, right? We never think of things like COVID, right? That's something that all of us have commonly
Hmm.
experienced. So what happens when you're launching a product and you've gone through the entire process and then you have like a COVID come in? Snap,
Hmm.
right? So either the project sort of goes on a standstill or you're smart enough to then, use agility and sort of keep moving things around.
Hmm.
So a lot of unpredictable complexities sort of come in. Um, and we have a lot of examples, right? Like you can look at Nano being the most classic case study, whether it's a design school, whether it's an MBA school. On the other hand, you can think about IKEA and Coca-Cola, where they've
Hmm.
constantly used it positively, right? One of my favorite case study is Coca-Cola in Australia was doing very well, and they set up these booths, on Valentine's Day where they got people together. They had like names, and people just started using it again. Or just Coke
Hmm.
Zero. Country like Singapore doesn't like so much sugar. So what Coke does is sort of packs it in a different way and tells a different story. So I think it's very important to be locally savvy about what you're working on or what your audience wants, uh, right? And be very aware of geopolitical situations living in the current dynamic.
Right.
Uh, this is, I mean, there are like innumerable memes on this, so I don't even think I should dig into this further. But I think from a designer's point of view, we're always excited about what we're doing and we're always thinking in the most ideal state. But like I
Hmm.
was saying earlier, we don't think about the business aspect of it, which is so, so important nowadays. And I only realized this when I went to London to do my MBA, and there was an MBA in design, surprisingly, right? And
Okay.
something I'd never heard of. And when I pursued it, the whole MBA revolved around value of design. And it's so interesting that every project that you do or every decision that is made using design or design thinking or organizations that have design led,
Hmm.
people are constantly measuring value, right? And that's something that is lacking, specifically in our education system. So everything that we design needs to have some sort of a value attached to it. Otherwise, we're going to start producing art in the near future, and it's not
Hmm.
going to be relevant or bringing in or making a difference, right? So,
Right.
a question that we all should start thinking about. The fourth thing is insight-driven research. With data becoming very popular, I think designers are seeing a major shift from just what they study versus what they actually have to do. Point being, we make mood boards, right? All of us make mood boards for every concept, idea, for ourselves, for projects. And we usually think in visual terms, or we usually think in terms where we bring in keywords, or, if we have this kind of a language, this is what we can do with it, right? What it's shifting to is, of course, you have visual mood boards, but you also have data mood boards. So it's very interesting where you have a lot of qualitative and quantitative data, and designers have to step up now when they're working in industries and try and identify these unusual things, put them together and sort of connect the dots to see what insights you can come up with. So no more are we sticking to our computers as designers and coming up with just
Yeah.
insights from what we read or, interviews and participative qualitative research. We are looking at a lot of numbers, which is a lot of our enemy. But we are using that numbers and driving insights and trying to understand how people are thinking at a larger scale.
Yeah.
And then I think this is a gap that's been existing forever. When we pitch in design universities or in classrooms, we're always pitching to designers, which means that when we are discussing something or when we are presenting, if we miss out on a particular point or a reasoning, um, the listener, who is also someone creative, is going to just assume that you know it, or going to ask you another question and prompt you. What happens in the real world is we're not talking to designers. We're talking to people who think in numbers. We're talking to people who think in graphs, and we're talking to people who think in how they're going to look and sound to the world, right? So there's a lot of you know, glamour. There's a lot of fundamental, there's a lot of mathematics that's attached to it, which we don't really, which we kind of ignore, right? So the moment you move from a classroom to an industry, these conversations become real, and that's where a lot of us get stuck. So either we jump to another job or we struggle and sort of, go into our own shell. This is something that's growing. A lot of people are struggling, especially the ones who've recently got into the industry in the last 3, 4 years, constantly struggling with facing stakeholders, facing clients, and how do you pitch, right? So I think practicing these things is going to be super important. So the
Right.
question is, while we're picking up all these degrees, which we have to, while we're getting jobs because they pay our bills, and building something or starting a family or just constantly trying to keep up, what are we doing to future-proof our own selves, right? And I don't mean as a community, that also, I mean as an individual level to be a part of the community, right? So I think it's extremely important that we keep upskilling ourselves, right? So it's said by Deloitte, a report by Deloitte, and also also by the CLO magazine and a couple of others, that your skills, perishable skills, can only have a lifespan of about 2 to 7 years. So if you know a software, or if you're picking up a illustration style, or anything that's going to have an expiry date, it's going to last you to 2 to 7 years. Whereas if you have lifelong skills, which is how to learn, I think they're going to make you last longer and just sort of survive and thrive a lot better, right? So the focus is how you can future-proof yourself. So I have a few ways of how, and I'm going to share that with you. So first and the most important thing is to not get scared of emerging technology. And I think we all do that. We all have been there. If not, you will be there some point because technology evolves and that kind of scares us. I've been a massive, I've feared a lot of evolving tech, only to realize that it's honestly not that scary if you just learn how to use it in the kind of work that you do. That's okay. You don't have to know everything. You don't have to be acing it all. You just have to know how it's going to benefit you and how it's going to harm you, right? So it's important to know what it can do, what it can't, right? A question that's floating since a couple of years and now even more is that is AI going to replace designers, right? And Canva has been doing that. I used Canva for the first time for this presentation. I'm guilty of that because I keep telling students not to use Canva. But this was a collaborative one, so it just made more sense. And I realized that I stopped using my brains after a while because, there were templates. And then I said, forget it, let's make your own templates. So it took an effort to do that, right? Which we don't realize when we're constantly working at a high speed. So, question about, is AI going to replace us? No, it can't, right? It might come very close to how we think and how we reason, but it's based on what we feed it, right? So it can never ask why to the questions that you and I can. And that's something that's so fundamental that's never going to change. AI can evolve to whichever degree, but you're always going to be the one feeding it. Don't forget that we are the ones who made it. So there's no point of, sort of fearing it. You can embrace it. You can think about what AI would do, and then work more towards the pre-AI and the post-AI phase, and just put down a little bit of in current situation where you need to ideate. You need to have prompts when you ideate. You need to develop a concept so that you have prompts, right? And then you need to put in the right prompts. And qualitative research is still something that we need to do because we still, have to see how the body language of the participant is. What are the expressions when someone's talking? What is that underlying insight that you're getting, right, when someone's answering, which is why we always do a combination of qualitative and quantitative, right? So that's something that AI will take time to do, but you do have a pre-AI and a post-AI space where designers are going to always, thrive. And when you have AI giving you what you ask for, you're always going to have to add empathy to it when you present it. That emotional engagement that you have with a client or a group of audience is always going to come from you, right? The designs can look great and we have complete advertisements made of AI, but someone thought about it. And that's the reason it exists in the form that it does, right? So just befriend it, and it's not that scary, to be honest. Um, Something that I have faced, seen, and addressed a lot in the last 5 years is we forget what's in our DNA. And what I mean by that is if you see that design process out there, it has so many parts, right? And this is not even completely deconstructed. You can deconstruct it a lot more. But when we learn design process in universities and classrooms, we look at it as a whole. So when you graduate, we feel that we know or we can do everything, in the design process. Uh, and we try to. And then when we look for jobs, we don't really read the context. But when we see the, little brief description, we sort of apply, we get into it, and then we realize that, well, this is what I want to do, and this is what I'm doing, and there's a gap there. So how do you address this is, I think, very important to first understand what's your DNA, right? Sit one day and try to analyze which part of the design process is your strength. And when you do this, you won't keep moving jobs, or you won't, you'll be much more clearer about what you want to do. And this can only be done nearing the end of your design education or after you finish, or maybe a year or two in your career, and then constantly every year. That, hey, this is what I've learned in the last 1 year. And so this is where I stand. This is where I stand. And okay, now these are my strengths. So what more can I do? And how many more skills can I add to my portfolio? And the ones on the right are just different aspects of the design process, and there are a lot more, but these are just a few, right? Someone could be a great design writer, someone could be a great design manager, and just someone could just be a great critic and try to understand what's going wrong with everything that other designers are doing. And there's space for everybody, right? It's just about finding the right match. So it doesn't matter if you can do like one tiny bit, or if you can do four tiny bits, or if you can do one whole part. Doesn't matter. There's space for everybody, but it's important that we be in the right space, right? So it's important that we understand and we question what we're good at.
Yeah.
And then I think from that comes the next question, which is, are you a learner or an executioner? And most often, what happens is we as designers move either into, the first phase of design, the design process, which is more of research and ideation and conceptualization and sort of the brief writing, right? And the second phase, which is actually doing the work. Important to understand where you stand. If you're a thinker, then you're always going to be in the first phase, right? And you need to know what's happening around you. If you're an executioner, then you need to be upskilling yourself with tools and with softwares and the trends that are going around and what the audience wants. So they're completely different parts of the design process and two very, very different mindsets required, which we don't often talk about when we are in classrooms, right? We look at it as a whole design process. So ask yourself if you're one open to even learning constantly. Not everyone likes to learn, right? After 4 years of schooling, actually 4+++, you kind of don't want to learn for a while, and that's okay. You get tired. So how do you make the best use of your skills and be in the best place where you are learning on the job, right? So if I'm working in a creative studio and I am an executioner, I'm going to learn from people around me, right? But if I am someone who wants to be a strategist, which is the first part of the design process, I need to thrive around people who are either working with startups or clients constantly or working in research, got to read a lot, got to travel a lot, right? So one is a lot to do with outside world, one is a lot to do with inside world. One is on the chair, one is not on the chair. So it's very, very important to understand which mindset you come from, right? And this is something I love to do is romanticize your surroundings, right? And as crazy as it sounds, I work out of coffee shops now because I sort of adopted a freelance culture. And every time I go to I've just taken a Starbucks example, guys. Okay, you don't have to like it. But every time I'm in a Starbucks, I spend a lot of time just trying to just wonder what the opposite person, is thinking or doing, where they come from, what's their story. And yeah, it might sound creepy, but it really helps me imagine. It really helps me understand and observe different kinds of people. And you won't believe it, it does help you when you make decisions in your design projects, right? Um, Simple thing, I was making this presentation of the Starbucks in Juhu in Bombay and the day before in Khar, right? And they both are Starbucks, they both are massive, both are filled with people working, but both have and they both are 1.5 kilometers apart. It's not even that far, but both have a very, very different target audience. One is young, one is business-like, one comes from more of the glamour fraternity, one comes from more of the sort of entrepreneurial fraternity. And when you're just sitting there and looking at people, I think you start understanding which locality thinks how, right? So that's just an example. Even when you look at retail companies, let's say a West Side, right? Or a Zudio, most common examples. If you're in one part of Ahmedabad and then go to another part of Ahmedabad, although the collection is the same, you'd see that the quantity of products varies, right? And I noticed this when I was at Primark in London, and Primarks are everywhere in the UK. And if you're at Wembley, you'll find a completely Indianized, product range. And if you're in a completely British part, you'd find like a very different product range. And these are all within like 15 kilometers, 20-kilometer range, right? And then you go to a more Afro community and you find a completely different range. And that's so interesting because they all come from the same company. They're the same designers making the same products with different prints. So whether it's patterns or just florals or whether it's solids, it's just interesting to see what is working in which quantity, right? So these are observations which only come out of practice. And if you're curious, and there are a lot of ways to do that, which we can talk about. But I think just try and romanticize the environment that you're in. Look around, look for like, things that are weird, look for things that are very, very obvious. And someone told me once that the best music in a film is when you don't even realize there's music, right? And like we say, the best design is when you don't even realize it's design, right? So that's the time when we actually ask the question that really what went into it, right? If it's so easy, what went into it? It can't be so easy, which means someone's really put an extra effort to think about it, right? So it's sort of inversely proportional. To make it easy, there's a lot of work, and to make it complicated, it's really easy. So that inverse proportion is, it's like a code that you sort of crack, and that only happens when you're constantly being stupid, silly, and curious, right? Going and talking to like random people anywhere and asking the most random questions. You can be eccentric, they'd call you that, but you have a lot of data, right? Like that's going to feed the next project. And that's so much fun when you're sitting and sort of, brainstorming in your studios. And then I think this is a major problem that I see everywhere, which is we're so overwhelmed with the data that we have, with the kind of content that we consume, whether it's on Instagram, whether it's newsletters that pop into our inbox, we're constantly thrown with a lot of information, right? And what happens is we hoard it. It's there. And you know it's there because you've read the title, you've read like one line of it, and you say, I'll read it later. But that never happens, right? You move on to next, and you move on to next, and you move on to the next. So we never really go back and actually consume what we've signed up for. So we overwhelm ourselves. And because of the overwhelm, we have started going backwards in the kind of understanding that we have. And this is something that marketing plays a big role in, where they're bombarding with you so much information, and consumers are taking that information, but they've stopped questioning, right? But as creatives, since I said, earlier we play split personalities, you consume, but you come back to your workplace, your desk, and ask yourself why, right? And when you ask that why is when you're going to not overwhelm yourself, because then you can, have this affinity mapping, same exercise that we do for our projects, sort of apply it on us as well. And you can do affinity mapping of, okay, there are these 10 subscriptions. I think only 2 are very relevant to me. I'm going to stick to this for the next couple of months, and then going to move to the next one for the next couple of months, and so on and so forth. So I think take 2, read it, move to the next. Because then you know how they speak, you know the kind of voice they have, you know the kind of information they have, and you know the sources that they give you data from, right? So I think just break it down. Don't get overwhelmed. Instagram, you can sign up on only a few people that you really, really want to follow. Put your notifications on. These are such simple things, but we don't do it, right? So I'm not talking rocket science. I'm just saying habits that I've over time practiced and learned. And it's helped me. It's helped a lot of students who are now working in the industry. And they constantly come back to me and saying, your habits really helped. So that's the only reason I'm sort of sharing them with you. And the question mark is try and ask yourself, what do you want, right? Data can keep throwing at you. But if you're an illustrator, make sure that you subscribe to illustration-based data or information, and then you make sure that you understand that in every discipline, because as designers we never stick to one discipline, right? Although we call design a discipline, it's obviously working for a lot of other disciplines. So it's important that we grow horizontally when we know our vertical strength, right? So illustration in medicine, and illustration in pharma, and illustration in hospitality, and illustration in animation, right? And what is going on there, and sort of grow our and expand our little horizon.
Isha, I had a quick question. Guys, please feel free to ask questions. Okay, I just had a question in my mind, so I'm just asking. So, how can I, like personally, how can I make my weekends effective? Because this is something which I think, all face. We just tone down on weekends, but we actually want to do something. But as you mentioned, that the whole working week makes us tired enough to not pursue anything else. Right. So, how can I make my weekends effective? And if you have any sources or resources which you can share of, how can I build myself as a holistic designer overall? So if you could kindly, touch upon that.
Sure. So I personally think that Saturdays and Sundays we should not work, right? We
Okay.
absolutely should not work. Reason being, we need that break, right?
Hmm.
And your question to what we can do on the weekend is great because you're upskilling yourself on that particular day where you're taking off from the real projects that you're working on. So maybe spend 2 hours on a Saturday and 2 hours on a Sunday, literally reading what you've bookmarked in the whole week. And if you just go through that religiously, I think that's enough, right? Because you've got food for your soul for the next 1 week. And when you read things slowly, and when you only read enough and not, okay, like I said, overwhelm yourself, you can remember that, you can process that, you can apply it, right? And then you move on to the next book. So that's how I would look at it. I bookmark a lot of things and I realize I never read anything with it. So now what I do is if I look at, let's say a typographer or an illustrator on Instagram, I make sure that on Saturday I have a reminder and that kind of takes me back to, okay, I have to check this person out and go through and scroll through the whole profile and read what people are saying and, so on and so forth. Another thing that I do is, let's say a new term has come in the week, right? And whether it's a term related to design or not, I probably write it down in my notebook somewhere or on my phone. I go back and check that at the end. So I think that's how I would, suggest people spend their weekends and then take some time off doing something you really love. and it could just be watching Netflix, to be honest. But do something that kind of takes you away from constantly, um, pushing yourself to get better and better and better, because that pressure sort of backfires. So I think 2 hours and 2 hours, both the days, sort of evenly spread. If you're a morning person in the morning, if you're a night person in the night, and that's it. And like take a break. Um, your second question was tools. So
Yeah.
further in the presentation, I've put a few books and I've put a
Okay.
few podcasts, which I think are the top ones, which I think have benefited me, and also a few festivals and things that you can go to. So
Okay.
that, and every weekend or every once in a month, you'd find some event happening, right? So like
Yeah.
Sandskriti is doing, you'd have ADI, you'd have someone Creative Morning doing it. So I think that is such a great way of just knowing what's happening in the fraternity and sort of keeping up with what
Yeah.
people are saying, talking, and doing. So I think that's a great way of also meeting new people,
Right.
right?
All
So that's
right.
how you should spend your weekend.
Done. Thank you. Much needed. Helpful. Thank you. Cool.
I've spoken a lot and I put a break slide, and this is something
Cool.
I love doing. We've done this a lot of times earlier, where everyone just gets together and invents a sound that has some meaning, right? And
Okay.
if everyone's up for it, I think please try and try some silly sounds and see if you can make sense of it, and take a little break from everything that you're listening to. Is anyone awake to do
Yeah,
this
everyone, guys,
and give it a
please,
try?
can you just see a show of hands so that we'll know that okay, everyone is awake? Or if you guys can just turn your cameras on. Oh, great, we have people awake. Perfect. Cool.
Oh,
All
I
right.
love that generated image. Eddie, that's so
Yeah.
cool. Does anyone want to give it a shot? Payu has and Raj has, Damani has a hand up.
Yeah. Just a second. Raj, would you like to give it a shot? The creative sound.
No?
Anything works.
Okay.
I think anything works.
Anything. I mean, you're creating anything that you want, right? You never know that's going to be the next emoji.
Yeah. So in terms of sound, are you asking that, I love the sound of when the spoon hits the glass, like a proper glass. So I love that sound. It kind of gives me that emotion. Okay, that chime sound, which you usually
Yeah.
hear in temples. So I think that is one of the songs which I really like in general. And I kind of, whenever
Same.
I sit down, yeah. So whenever I sit down to just, kind of create normal music, so I kind of use those sounds in there. So if anyone, guys, anyone has, special sound, which might be like something very silly, which might be the tires rubbing across the ground, anything it can be there.
I see a
Yeah.
lot of hands up.
Yeah. Not yeah. Just a second. Yeah. You had something to say?
Oh, so yes, what I
Yeah.
generally do is
Mhm.
थोड़े टाइम पहले मेरा वेकेशन चल रहा था, तो I practiced meowing the whole vacation. So
Cool,
I
cool.
just meow. That's that's the way I do it. And
Yeah,
I'm a
anything to be
musician, so
sane, I
I
think.
do beatboxing,
Okay, perfect.
all the time. So it gives me a
We should
break,
hear you.
relax. So do you wanna hear my
Beatbox.
beatboxing
We should hear him do it
Yeah,
once.
definitely.
right now?
Can do it now? Yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
I
Go for it.
don't know कि mic कितना अच्छा है, but let me try.
Fine.
That's so cool.
Thank you.
Good one, bro. Good
And
one.
that's
Good
on
one, bro.
mic. I can't imagine in real.
Good one, bro. Good one. Thank you. अभी तो सब आप तो 100% चल गए होंगे सर. I don't have question regarding that.
Okay. Do we
Perfect.
have a question or conversations about this? I'm gonna move into the next part, where I'm
Yeah,
gonna
guys,
have
anyone?
all of you do some work.
All right, cool. Guys, anyone has any questions? Or shall Isha proceed forward? Cool. Kunal, again, his question. Kunal, I think your mic is enabled.
Yes, I had one
Yeah.
question, but मैंने note भी किया हुआ था, but मैं भूल गया कहाँ पे है वो. Just a minute. हाँ,
कोई
that
नहीं.
part when you explained are you a learner or executioner? उसमें ना like मेरे को उतना नहीं समझा, तो please can you elaborate more on that?
Yeah, sure. So Kunal, do you have your own design process or do you follow one?
मतलब हाँ, कभी कभी मैं खुद से भी कर लेता हूँ या फिर मैं ऐसा दोनों में जगल करता रहता हूँ. So that's how it is.
Right. So आप जब start करते हो, right? When you start with any project, you usually start with research and knowing the surroundings and what's around, and then you move on into okay, so these are the sort of pointers that I need to now take forward into a visual design or product or service or interiors, whichever design spectrum you come from, right? But there is this one point beyond which your brief becomes reality, right? It starts to take shape. So what I was trying to say is if you're working on making and creating things, you're an executioner. But if you're working on step one, which is first part of the design process, which is where you are researching, ideating, conceptualizing, putting the brief together, talking to a lot of people to make sense of the problem at hand, all of that is going to be more strategic, right? So there's going to be different mindsets and how you approach from building, from finding things out to synthesizing it. So one is going to be an analytical mind, the other one's going to be a synthesis mindset, right? So it's important to know if you're a learner, you're constantly asking and curious and hungry for more data. So you're more analytical in nature, where if you're executioner, which means you're more synthesis, your mind works in synthesizing things. So you take the data given to you or you take the brief given to you, and then you convert it into a product or service. It's something tangible, right? So it's about the intangible and tangible aspect. That's one way to put it. It's about learning and execution. It's about analysis and synthesis. So you can put it in whichever way works for you. Does that make sense?
Yes, it did. Yes, thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah, thank you for asking that, Kunal. Yeah, if anyone has any more questions, you guys can just post it in the Q&A and we can take it up at the end because we'll have that part there. So I think Isha, we can move forward with this one.
Okay, before we move forward, I need everyone to
Yeah.
get paper and pen or pencil. No
Done, done,
tablets,
done.
but like paper and pencil.
Yeah.
So if you have it, great. If you don't, please get it. This is more of a doing exercise.
Mhm.
Should we wait or should we continue? Does everyone have access to? Can you put that in the
Everyone all
chat?
set? So this time the number is 2 if you all have access. Just type 2. Cool.
Yep. Okay.
All right. Great.
Okay.
Everyone's set. Yeah.
Cool. So this is an exercise called road mapping.
Mhm.
Just to make sure that you have a very clear blueprint for yourself and you can keep evolving that, right? The reason why I follow this or ask people to follow this is because, like I said, we have so much to do. We're always doing multiple things, and things are in our head, things are at the back of notebooks, and things are in our phone, right? So things are scattered. And when we really want to make a portfolio together or put something together, right, we're lost. Uh, so many designers have come to me and said, I've been working for the past so many years, but I don't have a portfolio. And of course you don't, because you've been working for so many years and you're thriving, right? But when it comes to the next, you don't really have a plan. Or when you want to shift roles, you don't know where you fit in, right? You know where you want to go, but you don't know how. So this is going to help you in every way. So let's roadmap it. And it's important to know what's the plan, blueprint. I'm more of a strategic person, so more of a learner than an executioner. So I like having notes and I like having everything sort of penned down, which is what I've tried to do here and give everyone like a blueprint as well. Right. So a very interesting question was asked to me one day, and from there, this whole exercise sort of, took shape, which is what do I want to do when I die? What do I want to leave behind when I die? And it's such a cryptic question, and I'm sure you're thinking like 𝗬𝗪𝗀𝗀𝗧, but it's very important, right? Like, what do you want to leave back? Do you just want to be someone who designs and that's it, or do you want to actually have something for people to remember? right? And all of us as designers, whether we say yes to it or not, we don't admit it a lot of times, but we do like a little bit of attention, right? And that's the reason you're in this business as well, right? Artists do it for themselves, like we all know, but designers do like a little bit of attention now and then. So it's important to answer these very, very crucial questions, like what's the legacy that you would wish to leave behind, right? And what do you want the world to know you for? Uh, Designer is such a big term, right? But within that, there are so many verticals and there's so many horizontals. So, which is that one little space that you want to be known for? And it's not fair for me to ask you to do this alone. So I'm going to tell you an example so that you can sort of take it from there. Uh, when I was asked this question, I was absolutely confused. Took me a month and a half to just navigate through this. And, I wrote back everything that I'd done. And I realized that I started off as a communication designer, right? But I don't want people to know me as that. I want people to know me as, let's say, a design educator. I want people to know me as someone who is just encouraging people. And that's it. I don't care about what sort of tagline I have. And that can be different for different people. Someone would want to be CEO of ABC company and have a brilliant view of the sea. And that's okay. But what are these things that you really want? Right? And when you know that, you sort of know how to build that legacy, right? So inversion method. So if you have a piece of paper, pencil, please just put whatever comes to your mind, and there's nothing right or wrong. The idea here is pouring your thoughts down. Just pour, right? This is like the first draft ever. So from now to the next couple of slides, just keep pouring things down, and you can make it look great a lot later, right? My idea here is to get you to use pencil, paper, not a tablet, and get to using all your senses and pouring what's in your mind, which is in your subconscious mind. We don't explore that most times. So ask this question to yourself, and then there are three sub questions, which is the legacy you want to leave behind as a person, as a professional, and as a change maker. So if you've got into the field of design, change making is a part of it, right? It's a byproduct of it. Designers are change makers, and you don't have to make massive changes like go change the climate, amendment act for all you know. You just have to make little changes. So can you take a couple of second, 1 minute, 2 minutes to just put your thoughts down here so we can move ahead and ask yourself, what's that big legacy that when you leave behind? What do you want to be known for as a person, professional, and as a change maker?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And would you like to do this exercise right now, or shall we give them time till the end so that we can hear a couple of people to get there?
We could do that. So I think make note of this, and at the end we can come back.
Yeah, we can definitely come back and then hear
Yeah.
almost everyone who is here. So yeah, good.
Yeah. Okay. So the
Guys,
second part.
Just do it,
Sorry.
okay? I'm just requesting everyone to just do it, okay? Because this is something which is very important for us to realize as a designer. It's very true. Cool.
Absolutely. The second is while you're gonna write this, there's a lot of things that's gonna stop you, right? Sorry,
Okay.
my camera. That's a lot of things that's gonna stop you, and all these things that we want to do. We have a long list as designers. Someday I'm gonna design this. I'm gonna work for this company. I want to learn from this designer, etc., etc. But we don't do anything about it. And the question is, why not? Right? Like to them, okay, but there's something that's stopping you, right? And we sort of procrastinate because we're not lazy. There's something that's stopping you, right? So maybe ask yourself, what are you scared of? And sketch it up, right? Like, so sketch it down. It could be anything. It could be a black hole. It could be something that's, a lot of people in the crowd. It could just be like, what if I get a rejection? Like a big no, right? Whatever it is, like put it down on paper, right? So as we discussed, you can do it later. But the point is, pour your fears down, right? And I'm going to give you a little cheat sheet here. It can't be anything out of this, right? And these are the most, the biggest 10 fears that whether a designer, whether any other individual, anybody is going to have these 10 fears, right? So, when you write your fears down, that is a way of explaining it or representing it but they would fall into one of these categories for sure, right? And as designers, if I want to pick up a few, it's always the imposter syndrome, it's always self-doubting, it's fear of rejection, it's fear of success. We like attention, but we're so scared of being successful as well, right? We don't know what to do with that, and we don't know what's after that. And the last one is procrastination. Oh God, like
Procrastinate.
we're always pushing it, right? So, I mean, fair enough, right? We're just human. We're just human. So I'm gonna put these 10 and leave them with you. While you put your fears down, you're gonna group them into one of these, right?
Yeah.
Don't fight them. Like I said, embrace that. If you're a procrastinator, great, right? What are you gonna do about it? It's okay. If you doubt yourself, great. Doubt yourself, but then find that 1 hour where you're going to be saying, I'm not going to doubt myself this 1 hour, but I'm going to doubt myself the hour after. So this 1 hour when nobody is looking at me and I'm in this one black room with no doors, no windows, what do I want to do? Right? And do that, actually practice that. And trust me, it helps. I was very scared of public speaking. And well, I'm in classrooms with 60 plus students every single day. And they're students, right? So they're not the kindest people. They're going to say things, they're in their own little zone, and they're going to attack you with a lot of questions. And honestly, I love it now. So, it's just putting yourself into a dark room and saying, I'm going to speak my mind out like there's nobody, and then what? Right? So, someone should attack me with this slide. I'm so sorry about it. But, well, that is what it is, right? And then this is one of my favorite exercises, and I've done it for you. If you had to write your 3 biggest goals as episodes of a Netflix series, what would they be? The reason why I'm asking you to do this is connected to the first question. When you don't know what your legacy is, when you do not know what you want to be known for, it's very simple to just put your 3 goals down. Right? And when you do that, you're going to see something that's connecting the 3, and eventually you're going to start giving it a title. Eventually, it's going to lead you to the larger picture. So you can go top down or down up. It's up to you. But I'm giving you both ways. But the idea is roadmap for yourself, right? Anyway, so work from legacy to breaking it down, or work through goals and then build your legacy title. Doesn't matter. So while
Alright.
you do this, sorry?
Yeah, no, I was just agreeing with
Okay.
it. Yeah.
So while you do this, I put in a very brief format mine, which is title of my series is going to be the For Tomorrow Club. This is something that I've been trying to build, and we've had conversations with Sandskriti and this as well, where how do I navigate 1,000+ designers finding their path? Because designers today are so lost with no fault of theirs. It's just the world's changing, and we're sort of playing catch up, right? So how can I individually read 1,000 designers? That's one of my episodes, and I have a whole story around it. Experiential travel to 50 countries before I turned 40. Kind of now you know my age, right? But yeah, I have a list of about 50 countries, out of which I've traveled to 16, and I want to sort of complete the rest, and with adventures in each country, right? So that's something else that I want to do and explore. And the last thing is write a book. When I tie these 3 things together, I realize that everything's to do with exploring. So you'll always find that one sort of connection that ties everything, and that can take me back to being talking about the legacy or the person that I want to be, right? So either way, you can connect the dots, right? Take some time. We'll do that at the end, and then we can discuss some fun, Netflix titles and episodes. That'll be really cool. Also give it a name if you're creative enough, right? So yeah, now let's achieve it. And this is a little more work, but the idea is now that you know your 3 goals, let's create the blueprint. So you talk about knowledge, skills, and ability and resources that you require for each of these goals, right? You know your goal 1, goal 2, and goal 3. What is the knowledge that you require for it? So let's say when I am talking about navigating 1,000 designers, the knowledge that I need to have is their mindsets, right? What is happening outside in the world? So I need to be able to understand design trends. I need to understand a little bit of psychology. I need to understand a little bit of uh, how design education and design industry demand is sort of navigating, right? So that's the kind of knowledge that I require. What are the skills? Communication skills, right? Very important. I'm also going to have to need a lot of blueprints, right? To help people navigate because there needs to be something tangible, some template that sort of helps people walk through that path. That's a skill. The ability is the ability to constantly connect dots, right? So and be unbiased. So if I'm talking with 30 people, I would have to listen to each one as a separate person, separate individual, right? I can't transfer one solution to another. So that's an ability. And when I say resources, well, basic resources like in this case would be access to students, uh, which means my constant engagement with universities. In your case, it could also be so in my third goal, it's got to do a lot with writing, right? So creative writing and reading, access to a lot of books, that's a resource, right? So you can make these distinctions. The reason why you do this is it gives you a clear picture of how or what you can do to reach your goal, right? So second step to this is signaling. Uh, how do you know where you stand? Right? There might be a couple of skills or knowledge areas or abilities or resources that you have or that you're an expert in, right? So you can just signal it out. Something that you need to improve on, which means you know about it. You're like, I'm there, but I'm not an expert at it. That's, where you stand, like a medium level. That's something you need to improve on. And then there might be things that you absolutely have no clue about. Like if I want to write a book, for example, I have no clue on how publishing works. I know how to design a book, I know how to write it, but I have absolutely no clue how to reach a publishing house or reach people who sort of help me in the process or even edit it for all you know, right? So things that I don't absolutely have access to or I need to learn, you sort of signal that. When you do this, you know how much or where you stand, which means you can put a timeline to it. So I need to be realistic about, okay, I'm going to write a book and publish in the next 6 months. That's not, right? I'm going to say, okay, it's going to take me about a year to finish, and then 6 months to sort of, figure out the process and then move into actually executioning it. So it suddenly starts seeming so real, and you can start putting timelines to this. But add another layer to this, right? In the very start, I said that skills are transferable, right? If you look at my goals, they're completely different. One has got to do with design education, the other with travel, and the third with just writing. They're not connected at all if you look at it in compartments. But there are a lot of skills that are perishable, transferable, and lifelong. What I mean by perishable skills is, let's say softwares, right? If I'm using InDesign to create a book, for example, it's only going to be relevant for as long as another software comes along and takes over, right? So a lot of people in the 90s and 2000s used CorelDRAW. But in 2010 and 11, when we got into college, well, CorelDRAW was asked by the industry, but no one really taught us because Adobe had sort of taken over. So what happens when the industry was playing catch up at that point, and now it's the other way, education's playing catch up. So it's always going to be that circle, and you've got to understand horizontally who's playing catch up, right? So which of your skills are perishable, which means they would have a lifespan of about 2 to 7 years. Which ones are transferable? Something like communication. It's transferable, right? If I become a lawyer, or if I become a designer, or if I become a faculty, they're all transferable skills, right? So it doesn't matter where I am, communication is always going to help me. So that's what I mean by transferable. And by lifelong, I mean things like just being resilient, just being very analytical, skills that are just so inward facing, that's got nothing to do with what's happening outside. You only get stronger with time, right? So resilience is one. You face so many rejections that you just kind of become blind to all the no's that come to you when you're applying for jobs, right? You don't feel sad anymore. You don't cry about it anymore. You just get, thick-skinned, like you say. So this is the third chart and the third layer. On the workshops, physical workshops that I do, we get this printed. we add like a translucent paper on this, and then we add another translucent paper where we do perishable, transferable, and lifelong. So we kind of know exactly where we stand, and then you put timelines to this. And when you do that, you know what you have to do for the next 3 years, 4 years, 5 years, depending on where your timeline is, right? So you know that, okay, I'm future proof for the next 2 years or 3 years. I'm good to go, and I do not have to, bother myself with what's happening outside. Maybe a little, just be aware, but I don't have to keep feeling scared or, feeling overwhelmed, because now you know what you've got to do, right? So I think road mapping has helped a lot of people and helps me as well, and keeps you future proofed for a short term. So yeah, like I said, keeps you very clear in your thought. And the impact of this is, also outwards. When you're talking to people and they ask you, hey, what do you do? You're so confident about what you want to answer to that. And this most gives up with a question of where do you see yourself in the next 5 years? I've never understood that question. But if you know your roadmap, you can answer that question as well, right? So that's basically the trick. And so, yeah, I think we're a little ahead of time, but I'm reaching on to the third part. So do we want to answer some questions right now and then move on to the third part?
Yeah, that'll also work. Guys,
Yes.
do we have any questions? Even you can just raise your hands. लग रहा है काफी क्लियर है अभी तक सबको सब समझ में आ गया.
I'm hoping that. Okay. So I'm going to
Cool.
move on to the last part, and then we
Fine.
can actually do the exercises at the end.
Isha, we had a question from Mandira. She's asking, could you touch upon ability again, please? Mandira. Yeah. Just a
Okay.
second, I'll enable her mic once in case she has any follow-up questions regarding this one. Second. Yeah, Mandira, if you'd like to ask.
Hi,
Yeah.
I just wanted to ask about the ability part. I got the rest. So just a little confused.
Right. So when you talk about skills, they're all hard skills. When you talk about ability, they're soft skills, right? The ability to talk to someone, the ability to negotiate, the ability to persuade, the ability to present, the ability to pitch. These are all soft skills, something that we're not taught, but we are expected to learn over time, right? And it grows stronger with practice. Uh, it's not something that you can, just go in a class and say, I'm going to do a 1 week course and get better at it. So it's a step-by-step process. Uh, they're not tangible, right? So if you want to just distinguish between capabilities, abilities, and skills are tangible. A lot of times, skills are digital skills, drawing skills, software skills, the skill to conceptualize, right? These are skills where you need to do something. Ability is innate, it grows. Does that make sense?
Yeah, got it. Thank you.
Welcome. So I'm going to go to the last part, and these are literally reminders on how we can constantly keep ourselves happy and alive and future-proofing, and feeding that creativity in us. And everything I've spoken till now, I think, has only got to do with clarity, right? So the way I've put the next few slides is they're all pointers, right? And what you can do, and they're tiny activities. So I think that we can do now, and it'll be really nice if everyone can do that. They're fun. And I'll also put a little remark on the corner, which is inward or outward, which means are they an inward skill or an outward skill, right? It's something that you need to do keeping the environment in mind, the surroundings in mind, people in mind, or is it got to do with just yourself? So when I say clarity, it's just clarity on, right, what you want to do and this whole road mapping exercise and knowing, what you're studying and where you want to be and sort of bridging that gap. It's all about clarity, right? And when you don't have that, we don't understand the who, what, and how. We're always just jumping and moving in circles. And you'll notice that, right? Take away, you know, your phone for a day, for example, right? You don't know what to do next. So that's when you actually start thinking about the who, what, and the how, right? Because then you have the time to ponder and reflect. So I would say that it's very important to be clear, which also involves a lot of reflection. And that's where everything begins when it comes to future proofing yourself. So, very, very simple pointers, which is find your inspiration. We always say that, hey, we need to have aspirations, but I think inspirations are extremely important because they've got to move you. And when they move you, it pushes you to do better, right? So, for me, it's travel. Every time I go and take up an adventure or meet new people, I come back very, very rejuvenated and I am extremely happy for the next couple of weeks and months, right? And I think for me, inspiration is just travel. Simple.
All right. Isha, Shruti has something to add within this.
Yeah, Shruti.
Shruti, you can turn your mic on.
Regarding the last point about the clarity,
Mhm.
how does one get out of that loop? Because once you're stuck in the loop, it becomes really difficult.
Yeah.
You know what you want, you know where you stand, but there's too much in your mind as an overthinker, and you're
Mm.
unable to channelize it, and that is what is stopping your growth. So how do you get
Mm.
out of this loop practically through the habits is what I want to ask, because doing things theoretically is very simple.
Yeah.
It's almost like giving gyan, but then when you actually implement it, it's very, very difficult.
Yeah.
A single habit needs to be formed in 21 days is what people say. But this is even difficult than that, because your brain keeps pulling you back to the loop.
Mhm.
And I think you are one of that person who can help me get out of this. So yeah.
Um, okay. So yeah, like you said, theory is very easy, and it's very easy for me to say this. So I had this book, okay, and I have a couple of other books, and everything that I've written is literally the same every single day, right? So the one question as to, because I was transitioning from a full time to a part time as well, I kept asking myself, what do I want to do? Where do I want to be? And I kept writing that every single day. I did that for about 10 to 15 odd days, I think 2 weeks. And I did that every day at the end of the day. And when I did that, and now I'm like, bus, oh yeah, now I need to make a decision. Time is running out. I can't keep wasting my time like that. I didn't realize I wasn't wasting my time. I was actually using my time. So I went back and reread everything I've written. And I made sure that I don't read the previous day, right? Because that's a bias. Uh, and this is just my way of doing it, right? You'd have another way of doing it. So I went back and reread all those 2 weeks worth of words or statements written and sketches, and I realized that they all point to the same thing. I had things that I don't like. I had things that I liked. I think I had things that I wanted to do, and I had things that I didn't want to do. Right. And when I put all of that together and tried like matching the dots, it gave me one statement. So I'm going to work for myself, and I'm going to use the time that I have to do things I love while obviously paying my bills. Right? So that kind of sentencing just helped me. And then that became like a manifestation for me. Sorry, manifesto for me, right? Which then I just kept working towards. So when you say clarity, extremely important, absolutely. But you can only do that when you keep asking yourself the same question multiple times. Does that help?
Yes, it was amazing. Thank you.
Thank you, Shruti.
So moving on to the next one. Um, yeah, I want all of you to do this actually. Pen 3 things down. It could be a story that you've read in your childhood. It could be a philosophy. It could be an idea, concept, an ad, anything that you've seen that's made you laugh or cry, anything that you remember, right? And in a way that you remember it because it's inspired you in one way or the other, right? So something that I remember is the series of ad by Diesel, and the whole series was called Being Stupid. And if you see the whole Being Stupid, just Google Being Stupid on by Diesel campaign, and they're a lot of fun, right? But the simplicity of it inspired me to just be creative thinker, right? So I would just ask you to write any 3 things down. They could just be food for all you know. But what are those 3 things? Put it down, right? And I'm going to give you these 10-second exercises for you in the next couple of slides. So guys, do it along. And if you have things, then we can go back at the end and, take one question and people can sort of respond to it. Right?
Yeah.
So that's your exercise 1. You can maybe wait for a couple of seconds for you to just quickly put that down.
Yeah.
I wish chugging Sprite would give me clarity because Sprite pure hair. Okay, I wish to. Okay, I'm gonna move on to the next one,
Yeah.
which is the point I was trying to make before, which is have a manifesto, which is obviously a second part of the first point, and make that your compass, right? So, like I said, ask yourself, are you even want to be a designer in the first place? So make sure that you do a road mapping, you keep it right in front of you, and you sort of keep upgrading it, right? And ask yourself, what is like a non-negotiable for you? What is the one thing that you will not do? Um, what is the one reason why you want to get up every morning and go to work, and then sort of add that into your manifesto, right? And this is one that is from 𝗳𝗃𝗃𝗃. For those of you who don't know her, she is a brilliant designer. She used to be a part of a company with 𝗳𝗃𝗃𝗃, which was 𝗳𝗃𝗃𝗃. And now she has her own company called 𝗳𝗃𝗃𝗃. And she started interning at a company at a very young age, and she became a partner, a name partner at the age of, I think, 24, 25. And the company is known for so many creative campaigns. She's an art director herself. So check her out. She's got some brilliant work. Whether you like her, I mean, whether you relate to her work or not, you'll still love it, seeing her work. Right? It's just absolutely creative and colorful. And I think the campaign that you'll relate to the most is the Fruity campaign. When Fruity relaunched a couple of years ago, all the ads were done by her. And Fruity kind of changed the logo, the shape of the packaging, and they had these ladder in their campaigns where people were climbing up and sitting on the Fruity. Yeah, those were kind of conceptualized by her and shot and directed by her as well. So she says something, right? I want to be as human as possible, not hide or run or destroy or prove anything, but just to see and be seen, right? And this is something that is an example of a manifesto. So uh, it doesn't have to be like, hey, I want to be a CEO. It just has to be, what is it that gets you out of bed every morning? And the point here is put it down. So what's that one idea, one dream that you work towards every day? So again, take a couple of seconds. You don't have to make your sentence right now, but what are the first 3 words that come to your mind, and just put them down right now, and you can make them better and make them more uh, happier later.
Done. Yep.
Yeah. So let's go to the third one, and that's an outward trait, right? Because it's got to do with your outside world.
Mhm.
Third one is never stop questioning, something we learned on first day of design college, right? Question. There's no question like a silly question. And yet when you ask a question, people look at you and give you a look. So my point is ignore it. So make why, what, and how your best friend, and just deconstruct everything and keep asking questions, right? Because if you're a designer, things are subjective and perspectives are so important. Even just in this room with like 39 of us are going to have different perspectives on maybe something I'm talking about, right? And that's great, because then that's at least that's your voice and you're aware of that, and that helps you see things from a very different perspective. So deconstruct things, and do not ask ChatGPT some answers to certain questions that are expected out of you. Ask them after you have an answer, and it can make it sound better, but please answer them yourself first. Because AI, like I said earlier, is not going to be able to ask the why. It's always going to reason the why. It's not going to ask the why, right? So the next exercise is ask yourself the weirdest questions, right? Like If you weren't a designer, what else would you be? Or if you were a designer who's an animal, what would that animal be? Uh, right? Because you're also relating it to the traits of the animal. It's not just for fun, but you also get to know that, okay, if I resonate with a lion, then those are the traits that I probably have in me. And subconsciously, you sort of relate it to the lion, right? What is that one designation which you want to give yourself? And these are not the typical designation. So a little story here is I was talking to a studio owner and very, very well renowned. Everyone might know him as well, but he got his cards printed back just before COVID, and he had written his designation as the cleaner, right? He's the studio owner, and he had written his designation as a cleaner. And obviously, everyone used to make fun of him, and he's like, "I do clean things up every day, right? Everyone's confusions, client conversations. I'm cleaning what's not required and I'm presenting it further, whether it's for my team, whether it's for the client, or whether it's for the audience. So what I'm doing is filtering things out and cleaning things up so they're, much more clearer and visible for people. So just a funny way of putting that. Another studio owner, animator, and filmmaker um has the entire, studio with respect to, the designations for the studio with respect to the Mahabharata. So they call their office, one of the kingdoms, and then they've given names accordingly. So it just empowers people, right? So what is it that you want to be? Doesn't, like I said, doesn't have to be a common name. Then why are you even pursuing design? I think the most important question, which we never ask ourselves. So most of the times in my class, the first question I always ask is, why are you pursuing design? Let's say because, I don't have to study math anymore. Most easiest answer that is, or I don't need textbooks anymore, right? But as when they evolve and get to like the finish line, they start talking about making a change or moving into like sustainability and doing something within fashion, or we're talking about like systemic changes or, some frustration that they want to, address. So what is that matured answer that you have of why you're pursuing design or being whatever designation you've given yourself? I call myself a catalyst. I don't, and a learner, right? I never call myself whatever people want to call it because it just doesn't make sense to me. Like I can't be your teacher because I'm also learning. And within design, you can't be your teacher because there's nothing to teach. You take and you give and you mentor and you sort of get mentored, right? And it's a constant circle. So like a math or a science, there are no facts you can't teach. So this whole, design teacher, like it absolutely frustrates me, right? So I call myself a mentor. And then I'm sure everyone has certain frustration and you can have your own designations to it. What makes your heartbeat faster? Is it a beautiful type that you see? Or some illustration, or just a really cool ad? Is it some animation? Is it a movie? So you start figuring out where you stand and then where your inspiration also comes from, right? So all of these pointers are somewhere sort of connected within each other. And what is your non-negotiable? Like when I was in design school, I was absolutely clear I'm not going to work on a Saturday. And I ended up working on a Saturday, right? But now I know I'm not. So, you make that decision, you stop and sort of move on. But eventually we all do, right? So what is that one non-negotiable that you're going to sort of is going to be like that little question that you ask yourself every time you take something new up? Very important. Build your network because you can go to every conference, you can go to every workshop. At the end, every expert is going to talk about the people that they came across, people they worked with, people they enjoyed working with, and the love that they got and gave. Right. So it really doesn't matter what skills you use or what the outcome is. It's always going to be about who you worked with and what people thought about it. That's it. Right. Just the two things. And it's always people and people in the middle as well, because you're working with them. So basically, the whole design process is made up of people rather than your tools and your softwares and everything else, right? So keep building your network. You never know how they become, the biggest family that you have, and be a part of as many communities you can and keep being active. And you meet the most beautiful people. I've come across disciplines that I've never heard of, and realize that, oh wow, like something like this can even exist, and suddenly you realize you're working in that, right? So it's just really good to keep yourself updated with what's happening in and around the world, especially with people, and also helps you predict what's going to come next, right? Because everyone's perspectives are based on the past and talking about the future, so you also understand what's going to come next in that sort of role. This is a practice which is notice the unusual. And like Shruti said for the earlier point, it's so easy to say it, but very difficult to do this. And when someone says notice the unusual, like what do I notice? Right? Do I notice the clean wall, or do I notice that one little speck on it? Right? And that's also called noticing the unusual. So it's very important to know what and how to notice and what dots to even connect, right? And that, like I said, is practice. It's absolute practice. And to start that practice is romanticizing. You have to get involved in every environment you go in. So observe, absorb, reflect, and make sure that every time you observe something, there is some insight that from it, right? So let's say you're sitting right now with 39 people around you, and you're observing, people commenting on the side. And when you're seeing people comment, you also start realizing the way they think, right? And then you also know where they come from. That's one indication and one insight of how people in that particular area might think of. Of course, it's one person, but when you have hundreds of these observations, you're going to start thinking about the community, right? So it's like a build up. So it's very important that where we're thinking in templates and algorithms, try to notice the most obvious things, which we think are, just taken for granted. And that's where your observation can sort of begin, and you can start practicing it. Another aspect is always borrow from unrelated industries. What we often do as designers is we look for inspiration, let's say, for graphic design within graphic design space. And how are you going to innovate if you look into the same space? Right? But if you look at films, or if you look at newspapers, if you look at magazines, or if you look at just the way architecture is designed, and then sort of put that into a graphic, right? You're going to borrow from different industries. Think about how pharmacists think or how scientists think, and then sort of bring that thinking back and see, okay, now how do I put this and do the 𝗧𝗕𝗃 and then sort of declutter it, right? So that could be another process, a little longer, but once you practice, it just gets really quick and fast. Carry your canvas, right? I think we hate drawing, all of us. If you're an artist, I'm sorry, but every time you ask someone to pen something down, they always bring their tablet out. And when you ask them, and I had a very funny conversation with a student where he said, yeah, but I can still erase. And I said, can you tear it? Can you tear the paper and throw it? And he said, no, obviously it's a tablet. I can't tear it. And I said, exactly. Because, when you can do all of that, there are no tools for you around, that you can see that define what you should be doing. When you're on paper, it's blank. You can do what you want. You can fold it. You can tear it. You can do what you want with it. Right. So you're not seeing tools that are going to dictate or navigate what you should be doing, but it's going to be for you to think how you want to play that game, right? So carry something with you always, and make sure that you either write if you're someone who writes, if you're someone who sketch. They do not have to be making sense to anybody else. As far as you can make sense of it, that's it, right? Nobody needs to understand. Like my notebook, a student had taken and tried to make sense of it. You can't. Because I write in the worst handwriting when I just want to like pen down thoughts. And that's it. I know what I'm writing and I know how to come back to it, right? And that's literally it. So make sure that while you're digitally enhancing, you're not forgetting that you have fingers and you have paper and you have pencil. And that's the best, collaboration actually, right? And make sure that tools don't sort of dictate you, but you dictate the tools, right? So we can again do this activity a little later. It's a lot of fun. I'm going to give you 20 seconds each time. And I'm going to give you 3 words. And you're going to sketch or write anything that you want. Anything. And nobody needs to make sense. You do not have to show it to us. Doesn't matter. But you do have to explain what you did or what you sort of went through in those 20 seconds of every word that was thrown at you, right? So don't be perfect, just pour your mind out. And when you start pouring your mind out, it'll be empty at some point. And that's where you'll start innovating, right? It's like your digestive system, to be honest. So if you want to eat more, you've got to go and throw it out, right? Another outward facing reminder is awareness. The world around, like we said, is constantly changing. So read, listen, attend. And this is just to stay up with the trends. So instead of spending an hour on Instagram or whichever other website trying to figure out trends and trying to understand what other people are writing about their interpretation of the trends, it's just easy to be a part of a larger fraternity like this where people are sharing, right? It's also more engaging. Um, and it's easy when you're looking and using more than one sense, basically. So blogs, books, podcasts. So these are a few that I think are really good. And these are India specific. So we can share more for those who are outside India. But just these 5 books are absolutely brilliant. So how to helps you just think in general, like, right? Still Like an Artist is a little more concept. Brand Gap is more towards branding and marketing, and then user friendly is more towards digital. So I've just put a mix over here for wherever you come from. Guys, design of everyday thing. That's like your Bible. Like it's like Don Norman. So Bible of everybody, every designer. Designathon, PDF, Design Up, Dieline, The Future, podcast, 𝗬𝘁𝗲𝘀. These are like podcasts and festivals that you should attend. And we're very proud in India to have these. And there are some brilliant speakers who come for this. And we met at Design Yatra, right? We've seen some brilliant speakers there and so much conversation that's coming out of that. So, going back to my point earlier, we hoard. We hoard so much, and our inboxes are so full that we basically don't know what. So pause, and now would ask this question, right? So on the weekend, just observe, reflect, take some time, put things down, like dump everything from the week and prepare for the next week, and then begin a new week, right? And if you want to do that, I think you can start now, which is because it's a Saturday. So what were your top 3 expectations from this workshop, right? You don't have to tell us. Write this down for yourself because then you know that you signed up for something knowing what you signed up for, right? And that's awareness, right? That's clarity. Shruti, you were asking how do you practice it? That's clarity. Before you start something, pen these 3 or 4 words down and you will never have to look at them. But then you know that your mind is consciously going to start thinking and subconsciously going to start taking those insights out, right? From what you hear and what you see and what you read or what you, the surrounding that you're in. What are the 2 things that you learned from your yesterday, right? So if you're a designer, you're going to think from that lens, right? So 2 things that say, I was riding through traffic and I realized that we're all living in this crazy, NFS2 game where everyone's constantly trying to navigate. So if I had to illustrate that, that would be so much fun, right? But that's something I learned, how people have absolutely no patience and don't care about their lives anymore and are just playing some race for what nobody knows, right? So let's say that's one learning or that's an insight out of something that I observed. So what's yours? It could be a day that you've just spent in bed, doesn't matter. But you notice something about how your bed is made or how your room is made, something you've never seen before in the number of years you've lived there, right? So be a little bit clearer, be a little bit observant and try putting these things down, random questions, and then your clarity can start building up, right? So you can do that for these 2 questions right now. And then my last point is be yourself, right? Because that's the most essential toolkit. We're always trying to be a designer that we like or another designer that we think is so cool. But you can't be that, right? And we all know it. But we still try to copy a different style and then we add a little bit of our own, right? Which is fine. And eventually you'll start make your own. So just, make sure that you're up to date with a lot of things that have got to do with you. So for example, make sure that you write a couple of sentences every now and then. So you don't lose out on the voice, that of a designer that's in you. right? That you have a perception, that you have something to say. Ask yourself what skill you learned. So if you're doing road mapping, then this is a nice way to keep a check, right? Where, okay, I promised myself I would do this skill. Have I? So that's a nice way to like keep a check. And then if not, just sign up, right? Like do anything, find something, do a free course, or just talk to someone and ask how they've done it, and meet them on coffee. It doesn't have to be done very, very professionally. As far as you go one step ahead, it doesn't matter, right? And then make sure that you constantly update your resume and your LinkedIn, because we tend to be in our own space as designers, and we forget that there is a world that's looking at us as well. And it's important to sort of stay updated over there. You never know what opportunity is going to knock your door, right? So I think it's very, very important to keep evaluating how much you're growing every couple of months. And yeah, that's it. I think we've finished earlier, but we have a lot of exercises to do.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, there are like 3 to 4 exercises which I think are at the minimum. So, guys, I don't think we have to go sequentially. Anything you want to, speak out here, you can just directly speak out. So, yeah, anyone would like to start? Just raise your hand. No
You can take
separate
your
way.
time. We can take a
Yeah,
quick
yeah,
break and come back earlier. That's
for
fine.
sure, for sure. Everyone wants to take like 2, 3 minutes, 5 minutes to come up with everything. तो कैमरा ऑन नहीं करोगे तो हमको ऐसे ही लगेगा कि आप लोग सो रहे हैं. I think we'll have to turn the cameras on for a bit. Yeah, hello Raj. But I think what you mentioned, yeah, Kunal.
Hi, I would like to ask that ये सेशन रिकॉर्ड तो हो रहा है, पर ये पोस्ट कहाँ पे होगा? बिकॉज बहुत सारी चीजें क्या बोलते हैं इन्होंने समझाई, बट पूरा पूरा ग्रास्प नहीं हो पाया, तो आई वुड हैव टू गो थ्रू इट ट्वाइस.
For sure. So this is, yeah, as Om mentioned, this is going to be on YouTube. ठीक है, but वो कुछ दिनों में आएगा, but till then we'll be circulating this presentation as well. So presentation आपको मिल जाएगा,
Okay.
and then we'll be able to go through it.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, cool. So if nobody's going, I would just like to say this part wherein when you mention that what you see yourself building as a legacy, right? So being one of the core members of Sandskriti, I think our purpose was pretty clear of what you want to do within Sandskriti. So उसके लिए as a person, I think I was pretty sure कि अगर मैं इस चीज़ का founding member बन रहा हूँ, I would like to take your control of most of the things in terms of hosting events, in terms of coming up with the ideations of what we want to do. But that didn't stop me as a professional from not taking feedback from people. Because it was something new which we were all doing. Your community में we were engaging, but this is something in terms of an offline community which we are going to do. So उसके लिए we had to take like a couple of feedbacks. We had to reach out to people who we haven't spoken to before. And when we got to the bigger mentors and we got to the people who are actually the CEOs and CFOs of the bigger companies, वो एक चीज थी जो मेरे को overwhelm करती थी पहले. That okay, I'll be talking to someone of that stature. तो क्या मैं उनसे उस लेवल की बात कर पाऊंगा? क्या वो मुझे अभी भी बच्चा ही समझेंगे? Because I'm still young in this industry, right? But then after talking to them, after sharing ideas, I thought that okay, this is something which we can definitely do together, and that is what actually forms Sanskriti. I'm very grateful that people have started onboarding with us within this. So it feels that okay, the support is there and we know what we are doing, and now that the motivation also clear of what we want to do. So that is something which I've learned as a person overall.
That's so cool. But I think it's very easy for us to get overwhelmed when we speak to people. And one of my so the previous job, the full time before I left that, my job involved meeting a lot of people and a lot of senior people. And people like, Anand Mahindra and Tim Cook was like 2 feet away from me, and I was lucky, right? So at that time, what do? Do you count your blessings, or do you just shy away, or do you like, walk and say hi to them, and you don't know what to do, right? And in those 2 seconds, you can't make that decision. And it took out, and I was right there, and I had the opportunity to talk because I was leading that team. I didn't do it for the longest time. And eventually I realized that I'm missing out on so much of interaction. And when you actually start talking to these people, you realize that everyone is talking about the same thing. The experience level is different, but everyone's talking about the same thing. So, when you have someone agree to your idea the first time, or acknowledge the idea, or appreciate the idea, someone of that legacy,
Hmm.
or someone coming from that level of designation, uh, you feel worthy, you feel valued, you feel okay, you're doing well. So that's like validation of sorts. And eventually, I think when you do that and push yourself 2, 3 times, then you realize that we're all in the same boat. It's just they got there because of the experience, and you can get there eventually. But obviously, the age and the experience is keeping that difference alive. Right. So I don't think
Right.
there's anything to be scared of because what they're reading is what you're reading.
Hmm.
How they analyze it is different because of the experience, and how we're analyzing is different because we're maybe not looking at a holistic picture because we don't have access to it the way they do. So I think that's something that I learned when I was meeting all these people. And now, if I'm put into a room, like I went alone to the Designathon this time, and I was so scared
Mhm.
about, oh my God, 3 days of so many speakers. What am I going to do? Honestly, first one was hard. After that, everything was easy. Like, you just walk up, you say hi, introduce
Yeah.
yourself. What'll happen? They'll just say, sorry, I have to go. I don't have time. Okay, cool. So eventually, like I said, that rejection just makes you feel okay, right? And sometimes just give a second chance and you know that it's genuine.
Hmm.
Creatives in
Very true.
general are a little more genuine when it comes to being, the individuals that we are as compared to, I've noticed, as compared to other disciplines, because, you're always striving on passion. So there's a little more genuinity and honesty there compared to others. I'm not comparing, I'm just sharing an observation.
Yeah. True. True. Does anyone else would like to share their thoughts on this? Any of the slides which were there for the activities? A quick raise of hand. Yeah.
Kalpesh.
Yeah, Kalpesh, you can unmute yourself. Hello, Kalpesh. Are you here with us?
Second. Sorry,
Yeah.
I was in. So, hi Isha, 𝗬𝗫𝗀𝗀𝘀 right? So, I have one question here. Like uh, for reading books. So, I'm not getting consistency every day. So, can you please help me out? How can I um, keep my consistency reading a book? Every time जब भी मैं start करता हूँ, I'm like मैं सो जाता हूँ ऐसा हो जाता है सो कई बार 10 मिनट सो मैक्सिमम मेरा टाइम है सो कैन यू प्लीज हेल्प मी आउट
I sure can, and I'm honestly not going to be the hypocrite where I'm going to be as honest as I can. I can't read more than 10 pages as well. And I've started trying really hard. But what I realized that because of those 10 minutes, you just stop reading, right? Instead, 10 minutes, 10 minutes, 10 minutes, 10 minutes consistently, you'll end up reading at least 50 pages in a week. And that's good enough, no? So that's one. And the other thing is, if I'm not okay with reading books, I just read them online. So now what I've done is instead of buying books, because it's so expensive, I go to PDF Drive and I download them, and then I just highlight the things I need without even reading the whole thing, right? Like quick reading, highlight them, and then just ponder upon those 5 or 6 sentences. That's what I genuinely do. So all the books that I have in my folder, we have like yellow marks on it, which I can't if I
ओके
bought them, right? Because you don't want to spoil the freshness of the book. That's two. The third thing is I'm not an auditory person, but maybe you're not a reader. Maybe you're more auditory. So figure out if you're
राइट
auditory, if you're visual, or if you're actually a reader. Like I can do visual, I can do reading, but I can't do auditory. Like podcasts, I lose my attention, like you said, for reading. So I need to figure out, what is it that works for me. So like there are three different ways to now figure that out, right?
या या गॉट इट थैंक यू by the
Thank you,
way
Kalpesh.
the session was very wonderful and it's such a worthy the content which you delivered which is really helpful being a
I'm happy.
designer like डिजाइनर को एक सिर्फ just not focus on the work on only. This is also most important things which we have to apply in day-to-day life. Thank you.
You're welcome. I really hope it helps. It takes a lot of time to ponder. I read someone say say that and sort of grasp it, of course. Um, but no, I mean, even if you just start practicing a little over a few years, we can get more holistic. There's another
Yes.
question by
Thank you.
𝗳𝗍𝗻, which says hands-on experience is more preferred rather than a full education cycle. What are your views on that? I absolutely agree. Hands-on experience is so important. And you do learn more on the job than you actually do in school. But having said that, I think school is very, very important because not because of what it teaches you, like in a course, but because it teaches you how to be collaborative, how to be open to different people's perspective, how to apply the design process every final project, right? Because second, third, fourth year, you're constantly applying the design process, and more than applying, you're pitching it. So you're pitching it in your course, you're pitching it to your friend, you're pitching it, let's say, at home, you're pitching it in your juries, right? And you're pitching it to who you're applying to. So I think that constant pitch is going to start, and the last time that you present is just going to be so much more confidence in the pitch, right? So I think it's all of those skills, which are not like the hard skills, is something that we need to go to the design school for. Having said that, it's also important to have a degree in today's world. Whether you pass with a distinction or whether you pass with, just pass, it doesn't matter as far as you're good at your work and you do have a degree, because a lot of job opportunities close if you're not an undergraduate, or if you're not like a master's or whatever, right? So I think it's very important to, just meet with the basic demands, because we can be rebels, but the world is going to take a while to accept these rebels. So, like I said, go to schools, go to colleges, learn what you have to, but make sure that you also have your own university at home, right, for your study. So I think that's very, very important. So balance it.
Okay. Shruti has a question.
Sorry, I have a lot of questions, but yeah.
No
So
worries.
you were talking about the design process, and there's this process which is not a process, but everybody does that. When you want to design, you want to do the brainstorming or design thinking, you end up just referencing Pinterest or Google or probably all these kind of stuffs, and then you overpower yourself and overwhelm yourself, and then you get stuck, and then you call it as a brain block, which is silly. So I think that it is important to have your own design process, but how do you build one is a big question practically again.
Yeah.
Uh, and not everybody can read books, is a bookworm, or is a podcast worm, or is someone who's constantly going through the YouTube videos and learning through that. So how does one build that process of their own? Because that is very important, and that is what is going to be the USP for you in the market.
Absolutely.
So yeah.
I love these practical questions that are coming because I so love the practicality of things. No, so design process will only happen when you keep practicing, right? So there's a design process that you learn in universities, which is pretty much universal because there are only three schools of thoughts when it comes to design process. So whichever university you learn a particular design process, you move to the studio, they'd have a little different version of it. You move to the next job, you'll have a little different version of it. So let's say little by learning, a little by experience, there would be a time when you are independently taking a project, you will realize that you are following a particular pattern, which is a mix of all, or which is, you know, uh, different words doing the same things, or maybe you have a different way of navigating through. So, for example, let's say in college you're learning these 7-step process or a 4-step process where you develop, and then you discover, and then you sort of get to know more about it, and then you have this one common point where you define a brief, and then you move on to opening the brief again, right? And then you again converge. So what I have learned from all the design processes and different thinking models that exist everywhere is that no matter what process you pick, there's only one way a human brain thinks, and then that can be interpreted in different ways, which is diverge, converge, diverge, converge. And when you use that and then add whatever names you want to it, whether it's a UX project, design thinking process, or design project, or working on a graphic or a branding project, or a marketing or product or service, irrespective, you're always going to be using this, this core fundamental, because your mind works like that, which is diverge, converge. So psychologically, we diverge and converge, diverge and converge. So you ask questions, you have an answer, you ask another question, you have an answer, you have another question, you ask, or you get an answer, right? And so on and so forth. And this is how our conversations also proceed, right? You thought about something, you asked a question, I'm answering, you'll think about something. Again, you'll ask me something. So if you look at it, this is a repeat pattern of just how humans function. And then you can layer it up with the way you want to think, right? And that will be dependent on the places you worked at or what you've been taught in design school. Uh, Someone says to do qualitative first, someone says to do quantitative first. It doesn't matter, right? Because at the end of the day, you are going to synthesize all that data. So whether you start with making the brief and then going into research, or doing the research and then making the brief, it's up to you. You can use deductive method, you can use inversion method, and that these are actually there. So there's this book called 100 Thinking Models. It's a rare book. Try finding it somewhere if you can. But otherwise, there are a lot of blogs about different thinking models. And I have a few penned down. And what I do is, based on the project, I pick a model, right? So you have lean thinking model, you have growth thinking model, you have design thinking model. There are like there are 3 different design processes. So you can pick the one that works for you in that particular case, but your divergent and convergent doesn't change, right? So practically, I think you can make your own, but after a few years of learning, grasping, and then reflecting on what works for you. If you feel uncomfortable in a process, it's okay. Then reiterate that process, and then, okay, how else would you do it? And then you'll have your own process without even realizing. That's one. I think the second question was about reading. I would say, if you can't read, if you think it's hard, it's okay. Uh, there's not one right way about getting information. Meet more people. If you're a people person, meet more people, but meet the right people. So if you cannot learn from those people, then they are not the people you need to read, if that makes sense, right? So there are friends, and then there are colleagues. But what I'm talking about are people that you learn from. So it's like these people are your books or your podcasts, right? So keep these people with you, around you, meet with them once in a while, go out with them, talk to them, have discussions. So you start realizing that you don't need to read, because their knowledge then becomes your knowledge, and then you add perception to it. So you can go, like I said, multiple ways. There's no right. You read and then you synthesize, or you get to know everything and then you sort of bring it to a point, right? And deduct your own theories on it. Obviously with proof. But yeah, I mean, you don't have to be a good reader or a bookworm or a podcast worm. Like, honestly, books are written and have been published for the longest time, but there's a lot of new stuff that's happening every single day. So blogs, which are short formats, are very easy, because you can read a title and you can do a quick summary or a voice, and then that's it, right? So they are probably easier to start with. And if you can read 10 blogs, then you can read 10 pages, right? Or 5 pages. So maybe start with blogs and then move on to like 5 pages today. And then, next day do 15 blogs, and then maybe go into like, okay, 10 pages today. And then eventually you'll realize you've gone into a book, right? Also, there's a lot of stuff on Netflix, to be honest. So you can actually do a lot of YouTubing and Netflixing.
Great, Shuri. Yeah. Hope that
there's a
answers your
question.
question. Yeah, there's a question by Rutu. Second, I'll spotlight her.
As
Rutu,
an
could you just
architect,
raise your hand once? Yeah, thank you. I spotlighted you. Yeah, you can go ahead.
Yeah, hi. I'm Rutuja. And my question was that I'm an architect and I'm trying to get into UX, and I've already prepared my case study. But now I have a kind of a confusion with should I apply for masters or should I do a job or an internship before that? Or like what would be your take on it? I just want to know.
Can I ask you how many years of experience you have right now?
I'm an architect and I have experience in architecture for 2 years.
Okay, 2 years, right? Any experience, 2 years. And you want to go into UX. Honestly, if you go to see, except the medium, everything remains the same, right? User experience in architecture is also experience building. Both are technical, both have a system, and both are system thinking, and they're not, very focused. They are more, they're larger and holistic in thinking. So that's one way you can actually make your case. But your question being stuck for masters or applying for job, my honest opinion is if you want to do a master's abroad right now, depending on the country, be very, very careful. If you want to come back, that's okay. But if you want to study there, or sorry, stay back there, then now is not the right time to do that because you're going to spend money and you're going to have to come back considering the job market right now. So maybe wait for a year, year and a half, and then apply. And obviously collect experience and also enough to sort of pay your fees as well. So it's a win-win situation. The other way is if you want to go for masters, go for it. But then make sure that you start networking very, very early on, or whether it's in India or whether it's abroad. And make sure that you also find a niche in UX because UX is soon going to start niching down, right? Because certain templates and certain styles are set. No more you have to think about, hey, burger menu is going to be designed how and where. So it's just about how do I make it interactive or how do I make it more, more localized for different communities and different languages and things like that. So you'll have to start niching out within that discipline as well. And the way you can make a decision is write down what happens when you take a job, pros and cons, what happens when you go for your master's, pros and cons, and then see which one has more and where does your heart lie. If you want to go abroad, just wait it out for a couple of months. I would genuinely say that. It's a struggle. I've gone and come back twice, which is why I'm saying it's a struggle right now. Just wait for another year, year and a half, and wait for things to settle down.
Okay,
Does that
thank you
help?
so much. I was actually planning for masters in India only. I'm not planning for masters abroad, looking
Yeah.
at the job market.
Yeah, then you can go and pursue anytime. Doesn't matter because you're still in your fraternity and you're still in the same community, right? Architecture and UX now have become branches of design anyway. So it doesn't matter. Architects are also designers, architect designers, uh, UX designers. Like I said, the principles of both are same. So irrespective, if you're studying in India, that's what your plan is, go ahead and do it.
Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you. I have a question. Yeah, we have a couple of questions. Vedika, would you like to go first this second? Yeah, hello, Vedika.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, we are.
Yeah.
Yeah. Hello. It was nice listening to you, and I really like the road mapping thing because I really need a way to organize my thoughts because I think a lot, but I need boxes to fill it up with. So yeah, thank you for that. And I wanted to ask, what is your take on animation industry in India and abroad? And what do you think about like doing an interdisciplinary master's with bachelor's in animation. So I would like to hear your opinion on that.
Are you already a undergraduate in animation or any design discipline?
No, I am currently pursuing animation and I'm in second year.
Okay. Well, the animation industry right now is thriving. So a lot of people don't know this, but a lot of films that we see, Hollywood films are all made in our own country, right? And there is so much opportunity, especially in the south of India. And there are a lot of studios that are now partnering with global companies as well. So as far as the future of the the industry goes, there's no doubt about it growing. It's going to continue to grow and thrive, of course. It is going to get a little more creative. And by that, I mean, is not going to be the traditional animation anymore. It's going to have a lot of tech involved, and it's going to have a lot of art involved and a lot of direction involved. So your skills are just growing rather than just being an animator. You're thinking wider. And if you choose a niche field in that, then of course you don't have to have a problem. But as a field, it's constantly growing. What animators in the country and the community that I'm a part of, I think the constant conversation there is how do we bring Indian animation out there, right? We have a lot of animation that we ape from other countries, and we also watch a lot of animation from other countries. But we never really focus on Indian animation, and we have a lot of stories to tell. So that's a massive subject area, and it's a field that's now beginning to grow because conversations are growing, and we have some great animators in our country. You can check some studios out and the top ones, and they were also there at the Designathon and PDF and things like that. So I think go hear them and meet them, and this is a question you should be asking them, and you never know, they'd probably have a conversation about what you like. Right? So everyone in animation is hungry for talent right now. So the field is so vast, and it's welcoming people with open arms. Does that answer your question?
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Okay. Thank you, Vedika. Yeah, we have a question from Mandira as well. Second.
That's so. Wow. That's a very interesting question. And at the same time, I don't take my word for it because everyone has a very, very different perspective on this. My perspective on this is that UX is no more just a part of design, right? You have UX in pharma, you have UX in hospitality, you have UX in education, travel, and there are very, very specific companies that are working only and catering only to certain disciplines. So if you take UX for travel, there are a couple of companies that only do UX for travel, right? And they are the ones who are making these softwares and making designs, sort of democratizing that. Same way for every industry. So when you're saying what you can consider niching down into is obviously learn the entire spectrum of UX and then try and identify certain industries that you resonate with, right? It's got nothing to do with what's happening outside because everyone's right now, doing the, going through the digital transformation phase. And these are not the innovators, they're more the laggards because, the innovative companies have done transformation long, long ago. But the mass is now converting its business into a more digital savvy business model. So you can find your niche into whichever field you want. UX research is being recognized a lot recently and has a long journey. But at the same time, there are a lot of designers moving into different fields, but doesn't matter what you like, choose the industry and get into that. Right. So right now, UX is not about me only going to an IT company. You can go work in a UX, the UX space and go into any industry you want. Right. Recent example I can give you is one of my student. She's been working now for about 3.5 years. She got into a company one of the companies that created the vaccine for our country. She is so young. She's probably 24. And she is now leading the design team at that company because there is no designer there. So while they're digitally transforming their backend, she's leading that, right? And for someone at that age to be leading that is so cool because there's no competition there, right? So while all the UX designers are competing and getting frustrated, she's found an industry which has so much opportunity. So it's up to you to find the opportunity, the industry that you like and you resonate with, and then practice what you want to. Does that help, Mandira?
Mandira, are you with us? So there might be a
yeah.
there might be a network issue.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess we had another question from Ananda as well. Ananda, would you like to ask that question? If you're here with us, you can just raise your hand once. Yeah.
Hi, Isha.
Hi.
Thank you. First of all, thank you so much for doing this session. I think it's been supremely helpful for all of us. But just to extend the question that I think Mandira asked previously in terms of, what are the kind of niche that we can get into? So I've been working as a UX designer for 3 years now. And I think I'm also at the juncture wherein I'm trying to figure out what my next move should be, because I've been working with basically a consulting, and I would want to now move on to something that's a little more strategy based, and not as much execution based. So I'm looking at service design as a very upcoming, field with respect to design. But the thing is that I've not looked at a lot of job opportunities here in India. So I just want to understand from you in terms of what do you think the scope of service design is, and how do you think it's going to, in the next coming years, it's going to look like for us here?
Okay. So this has got to just do with nomenclature. Okay, that's literally the answer. So when you're reading job profiles, try comparing service design job profiles outside India and read the description there. And then you find job profiles that you like in the country here. If you're looking for in India, don't look at the nomenclature. In a lot of cases, service design as a name, right, is not yet so popular. So you would be called a design strategist and you would still be doing a service designer job, right? So don't look at nomenclature, try looking at what's in it. The scope of service design, I think, is growing, obviously, because India is moving more into a service-based economy and more so each day. If you just look at your phone, the number of apps that we have constantly keep growing, and they are all service-based apps, right? So your service economy can be judged just by looking at your app tree. That's just one example of how much it's growing. How to get or move into, or how do you niche into from UX to service design, I think is only how you pitch yourself, because what you've been doing as a UX designer, could you tell me exactly which space as a UX designer you've been working in?
Which space as in?
As in UX research or UX design, or
No,
like...
I'm working as primarily a UX designer. Research is also a part of it, but not so much as design.
Right. So one way you can pitch yourself is every decision that's made you or led you to design something, that decision, in a way, if you connect the dots, is going to give you a whole map, right? And those maps, when you put together, can be pitched for a service design job, for example. When you talk about service design, it is the whole flow. It's how a service is designed primarily, if you just basically break it down. And what you're doing is the execution side of it. So when you show people what made you design things and you give reasons to it, it's going to suddenly become clearer to the employer or to the recruiter that you do know how you made those decisions and what you did with it. And now you're just going to go and sort of go a step behind, in a way, in the process, and use your design language to now reason. And that reasoning and connecting the dots is going to be leading you to be a service designer, in a way. And then you can always find your way up and sort of climb up with service designers around you.
All right. That makes sense. Okay. Thank you.
All right. Thank you.
I think
Yeah,
Mandira wanted to
guys.
say something. but she couldn't
Yeah,
unmute.
Mandra. Just a second. Mandra, are you able to unmute yourself now? We just check. Ramandra, are you able to hear us?
She'll have to unmute.
Okay.
So
No worries, Mandra.
Maybe
If you have any question, you can just post it in the chat here. We will read it out. Then Isha will be able to answer. Yeah. And then, yeah, guys, if you want to have your inputs here for all the activities which you mentioned, we can also discuss those briefly. So if anyone like to share any of the things here, we'll be able to discuss those.
My point would just be don't do it by yourself because you'll lose interest. Try finding someone, even if it's from this group, you know, just pick anybody and try doing the road mapping or answering these questions with them. If you sit to do it alone, it could be a little more, you'd procrastinate, right? You'd get a little tired because, again, overwhelmed with all your thoughts. So try and find someone who is always going to keep a track of what you do. And you don't even have to know that person. It's just about someone checking on you saying, have you done it? Right? So maybe just from this group, you can find someone.
And I think in terms of the procrastination, we might come up to you after a while, when we finally have the questions, when we finally have the answers to those questions, and then whenever we meet again. So we have a question from Rehan as well. What skills or qualities do you think are very crucial for the next generation of designers to focus on? Rehan, could you also raise your hand once, please? The spotlight you. Section.
I'm trying to find him. Yeah.
Yeah. Cool.
Hi, Rehan. Do you want to add anything to this? Then you can't unmute.
Rehan, are you able to unmute yourself? Oh.
He's not able to speak. Okay, I'm gonna answer your. I'm gonna answer your question till the time we figure the mic. What skills or qualities do you think are very crucial for the next gen? I think that was the whole presentation, but if I have to summarize, I think being very agile is very, very important. Being very aware of yourself and evaluating yourself and also what's happening around you. Not look at fads, but trends. I think that's very important because we often get, we drown into the fads, which are very short-term trends, and we think that they are going to be large-term trends, and that's what we make our decisions on a lot of times. So wait for the trend to sort of, stabilize, and then maybe hop onto it or try and think about it and sort of integrate into yourself, into your life. But the larger thing, I think the crucial next gen skills would be very resilient. It's going to be very easy for people to sway you. So creative resilience, whether it's your work or whether it's you, is going to be super, important. It's going to be very, very crucial. Agility. So you'll have to think on your feet all the time because situations are changing. And the way of saying it is, goalposts are changing. So every time you have to hit, the ball, you don't know where to. So it's important that you know where to move and sort of be very, very quick on your feet. So that and be aware, I think just 3 super important skills and show up. I think my key learnings is the skills I'm going to share with you because consistency with so many things changing every day, I think consistency is super important. And consistency, not like I'm going to do a job, same job for 10 years, but let's not give up in a month or 2. Like if 2 months we get tired, let's stay on it for another month and then make a decision, right? So let's take that little breathing space, cooling off time, step back and sort of think about it as the another personality of yourself, and then come back and decide and make a decision on whether you want to continue to do something or not. So showing up every day, I think, is super important. So 3 things. 4.
Yeah, thank you, Isha Patel.
Great. Thank you, Rehan. I think you've already answered Rahul's question as well, wherein he's asking that what are kind of resources which we can do, which you can take for learning designing as a newbie. And Rahul, this presentation will also be shared, so you'll have those resources in hand. But if Isha, I'd like to add anything within this.
Resources. Oh, I mean, there are a lot of, like design magazines online. Just pick the ones that work for you. There are so many, right? Like, uh, eventually, like over time, you start picking and following just a few. So I used to subscribe to everything. And then, when you read the first line on your inbox, you know whether that interests you or not. The ones that interest you, you keep. The ones that don't, you unsubscribe, right? And eventually you're left with like 3 or 4. So you know that, okay, I'm only going to read these couple of uh, newsletters that come in, and they're short ones. So you can do that. There's also a really cool website called Stylus. I had free access to it. I'm not sure if it's still free, but check it out. It's called stylus.com, and it's a global trend website where they give you trends in 60 words or about 100 words, just like in shorts for news. So Stylus keeps giving you what's happening around the world and the way they function. So we had some speakers from there when I was studying in London. And what they explained and the way they work is they distribute people around the world, where there's action happening. And they bring in data and then these short trends written down. So wherever you are, you have access to the world and the world trends. And each of them are filtered according to your area of interest. So, I mean, just check it out if it's paid or not now. I had free access. I was lucky at that point. And I think they also have a couple of pages free, and then you get trends a little later. But, irrespective of when you get it, you do know what's happening in the decade or, that one year or in the next 6 months. So something like that would be very helpful. AIGA, AIGA, is also very helpful. They keep updating a lot of things. And the other thing is we also always look at magazines and blogs, right? Sometimes, um, just companies that put up a lot of writing also helps. Like if you look at a McKinsey, they have a beautiful app, and if you just subscribe to the design and keep your notifications on just for design, you get to read a lot of the insights that are design related, not specific to it, but related. So let's say something to do with data and design, something to do with new emerging tech and design, something to do with, people working in an office in a particular area, in the world, and how they are, sort of working and how they're designing their work schedules. That's also in a way system design, right? So you get to know a lot of these underlying trends from them. So I think they become very crucial. Deloitte does a lot. And obviously, these are the big companies, but they write a lot. And then the third thing I would say is we don't, Medium, again, like Wikipedia, is one-on-one. But if you follow certain people who, if after reading, you'll figure out they're unbiased or not. I think even though it's an individual perspective, if you follow filters, right, like common topics and see what 10 people are saying about it, you get to see a trend. You also get to see what's sort of brewing in that space. And you also get to see how different people perceive different things. So let's say if I'm talking about UX and niching it down, right, for the next 5 years, someone from the education background would write in a very different way. Someone from a tech background would have a very different say. Someone as a designer, in the UX space itself would have a different say, and someone as a psychologist would have a different say. So if you just follow filters, which are your areas of interest, you can then bifurcate them and you sort of, again, horizontally bring in people and see how they think about things, because we can't just think in verticals anymore. Like it has to be certain verticals and certain horizontals. So yeah.
Great. Thank you, Isha. Rahul, I hope that answers your question overall. I think she had shared mood. So that's great. So I think what we'll do is we will take everything which we had discussed overall, and if people you don't have anything more to add here, I think we'll jot down everything which we can till for like a couple of days, which we have already seen in those activities. What we'll do is if Isha is able to view everything, you can just ping her on LinkedIn. She's active there, so you can just share your thoughts there, and I'm sure she'll find some time for you guys, and she'll
Yeah,
try to engage there.
definitely.
And yeah, overall, Isha, thank you so much for this wonderful workshop. I think it was insightful, it was interactive, it was everything which like a typical workshop has to be. So thank you for that. And yeah, overall, guys, before ending this, I would just like to request you guys to come in for a quick picture. That's possible. And we just take a quick picture and just to see that, okay, everyone is awake, okay? But thank you for the engagement as well. I'll just stop the spotlighting here so that we'll be able to see everything. Guys, maximum number of cameras, please. Be great. So I'm able to see a couple of people as well. So yeah.
Let's show a Saturday look, guys. We have more pictures?
Yeah, I think the designated person here is Hiten, so he also takes the pictures. So Hiten, if you will be kind enough. But I think we just normally, like pose. Yeah, Kalpesh is there with the sunglasses. So perfect. All right. So yeah, thank you guys for joining,
Thank
and
you
I'll
so
just
much,
quickly
everyone.
open that slide for the Designathon as well at the end. So it'd be great if just see you guys there at the Designathon, and you can just check out our website at Sandskriti.com, and you'll be able to find everything related to the Designathon there, everything related to the passport there, and overall I think you guys will have fun scrolling through everything there. And yeah, I think we'll keep on meeting Isha from time to time now, and looking forward to all the other workshops we are going to do. So I would like to just request everyone to just come in for the workshops, and we'll have another engagement session like this. So yeah, guys, we will see you. We'll see you. Thank you for this. And yeah, if anyone has like any last thoughts, we are here for a while. We are here for a couple of minutes. So just feel free to just come in and ask your questions. And yeah, we have our next workshop on Sunday, this coming Sunday, which is on the 17th. So you'll be able to just stay tuned for that. We'll be going to give you the links there just for registration. So that is something I wanted to mention there.
Which one is that?
It's from 𝗬𝗁𝗀𝗃. It's about personas, creating personas. So that is something
guys,
which also will be.
that's going to be great. Rahul's been a colleague of mine. It's great. He has so much to say. Also read a lot of his blogs. He does some really cool stuff. Yeah.
I think people, people who are currently starting, they kind of struggle with the personas part, wherein you figure out if you want to have everything within that persona, if you want to take out some things, because that kind of affects the results of the things. So yeah, that's going to be insightful. Yeah. Yeah. All right, guys. So yeah, a lot of the pouring in. Great.
That's sweet.
Yeah. So yes, guys, I think we'll see each other soon. So just stay connected and just engage with the community. And yeah, I think it was a wonderful session. See you guys. See you everyone. Take care. And see you on Sunday. Please, yes, it's on a Sunday, I know. But yeah, just come in. Cool. All right then. See you guys. Take care. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.
See you. Bye-bye.